Chapter 8:15, Illusions in the Mist. Jian Chen stared blankly at the pile of dust and asked, "What is that?" During the moment just before, Jian Chen did not manage to see what the ball of white light was. Those are fishes that inhabit the area close to the Fantasy Star Ocean and are mutated due to the environments. Its speed is especially quick, and this fish has already reached the strength of a Class 6 magical beast. However, it doesn't possess a monster core. If Saint Rulers don't pay attention, they can be injured by it. The heavenly enchantress spoke indifferently. She clearly had an extremely great understanding of the place. Hearing this, Jian Chen was secretly shocked. Class 6 magical beasts were like heaven saint masters. With their strength, they were like ants before Saint Rulers, and could be crushed with a twitch of a finger. They posed no threat to Saint Rulers at all. However, Saint Rulers would be suppressed within the mist of the Fantasy Star Ocean. Not only would they lose their ability to control spatial force and have their senses decreased, their vision would also be limited to 3 meters, greatly decreasing their strength. With that, it would be a great opportunity for Class 6 magical beasts to slay a Saint Ruler. The two of them continued their way in the mist. However, with the attack from the weird fish earlier, Jian Chen became even more vigilant. The soybean-sized chaotic Niden in his dantian spat out large amounts of chaotic force without holding back at all, filling Jian Chen's entire body. He had pushed the power of the chaotic force to the extent that even if he suffered a blow from a third heavenly layer Saint Ruler, he would not be harmed at all. As they advanced deeper and deeper, the weird mist also became thicker and thicker. Jian Chen's range of vision had already shrunken to 2 meters instead of 3, with only a misty white screen to see. In here, Jian Chen's senses were suppressed, he even lost the simplest feelings of direction. He only followed the heaven enchantress and advanced slowly, and the distance between them had already shrunken to half a meter. Jian Chen could even smell the faint, alluring fragrance of the heavenly enchantress. "Senior, just how large is this area? How much longer do we need to travel to pass through this region?" Jian Chen turned towards the heavenly enchantress and asked. Although the two of them were only separated by half a meter, the heavenly enchantress still unable to be made out clearly, seeming like a blurry, purple figure to Jian Chen. "We need to travel 100 kilometers to get out of this mist. With our current speed, it should take 6 hours. The heavenly enchantress spoke indifferently while her bewitching phoenix eyes flickered, vigilantly observing the surroundings. At that very moment, another few streaks of white light shot from the surroundings with lightning speed. As they approached the two of them, they were only discovered when they were 2 meters away, and arrived before Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress instantly. Jian Chen remained calm and attacked the white streak without any hesitation. The white streaks were made up of the mutated fish traveling at great speeds, and were only equivalent to heaven saint masters at most. Such a weak attack could not harm him at all. Just as the streaks of light were about to strike the two of them, a clear note suddenly rang out. It turned into a visible sound wave that expanded into the surroundings. As the streaks of light came into contact with the sound wave, they immediately turned into a pile of dust, shaken apart by the zither note. With that, Jian Chen narrowed his eyes slightly in a way it could not be detected. His acknowledgments for the enchantress's strength increased by a level. With just a casual note, she could display such strength. Even if there were more heaven saint masters, they would definitely not be able to withstand the strength of her notes. Continuing onwards, Jian Chen and heaven enchantress both suffered constant attacks from the mutated fish. The number had also increased from the original single fish to thousands at once. However, the fish were only as powerful as Class 6 magical beasts. No matter how many came, they could not withstand the heaven enchantress's zither. With just a single note, it was enough to shake hundreds or thousands of Class 6 magical beasts to death. The two of them flew steadily through the fog for 2 hours, traversing over 80 kilometers. They passed through the region of fog and arrived at the outskirts of the Fantasy Star Ocean. The deeper they went, the thicker the mist became. After over 8 kilometers, the mist had basically corporealized. Currently, Jian Chen was unable to see anything at all. If he extended his hands, he would even lose visibility of his fingers. The heavenly enchantress also disappeared completely. Only the faint fragrance at Jian Chen's nose signified her existence. This had made Jian Chen virtually reliant on his nose to detect where she was, using the fragrance from her body. Suddenly, Jian Chen felt the mist before him surge violently. Shortly afterwards, a blurry figure suddenly appeared, before quickly becoming clearly visible. It was a white-robed, graceful, middle-aged beauty, and she was currently smiling benevolently at Jian Chen. Jian Chen stared blankly at the woman before him, while his emotions were overwhelmed by disbelief. Along with it was an odd pain. "Xianger, why have you come here? Have you come to visit your mother?" The graceful woman spoke softly. Her benevolent smile immediately melted Jian Chen's rock-hard heart. "Mother!" Jian Chen unconsciously called out. His voice was filled with sorrow, and even his eyes became rather bloodshot. Although the illusion affected Jian Chen's vision, it did not confuse Jian Chen. He knew that his mother was dead, and that her body was currently stored in Mercenary City, awaiting to be revived after he had become a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. But even though it was like that, Bai Yuntian's appearance still affected Jian Chen psychologically. He was unable to ignore it completely. "All you see are illusions. Don't fall for it, or your consciousness will be submerged by it and you'll be trapped within it." The heavenly enchantress's voice appeared in Jian Chen's ears. Her nature-like voice carried a bewitching charm, possessing the ability of calming people. It was as if it could awaken people from illusions. Jian Chen's heart beat heavily. A while later, he sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed down, forcing himself to not look at his mother. He continued to fly forwards, following the heavenly enchantress. "Xianger, what's happened to you? I'm your mother. Do you no longer recognize your mother? Xianger, you can't forget your mother. Your mother's only son, I can't go on without you." Bai Yuntian suddenly became sorrowful, crying out her heart. She was in anguish. Jian Chen's heart became to tremble violently, and he tightly clenched his hands. He knew that it was an illusion from the mist, so he was unable to do anything about it. All he could do was remain clear-headed and not fall into it. At that very moment, Jian Chen's body jerked violently. To his side, he suddenly saw his father, Changyang Ba, fleeing whilst covered in blood, with some sneering Earth Saint Masters pursuing him. "Xianger, save me, please save me. I'm your father." Suddenly, Changyang Ba, with his bloody face, saw Jian Chen and cried out for help. His voice was extremely miserable. Jian Chen's body began to tremble violently while a monstrous killing intent had already appeared in his heart. He could not help but connect Changyang Ba's current appearance to the deaths of his parents, as if it were the 5 old men killing his parents one again. "This is all an illusion. My parents are already dead, and I've left them at Mercenary City." Jian Chen constantly mumbled to himself, forcing himself to calm down. Although he knew this was all just an illusion, what was happening was actually Jian Chen's greatest anguish. "Xianger, save me. I'm your father." Changyang Ba called out for help once again. His despaired voice was heard by Jian Chen, painfully piercing Jian Chen's heart. "Arg!" A miserable cry came from Changyang Ba. The people pursuing him had already blocked him, while one of them had stabbed through Changyang Ba's chest with his saint weapon. He was currently speaking to Changyang Ba with a sneer. Changyang Ba collapsed in a pool of blood. His clothes were dyed red by the blood, and even the ground had become red. "Xianger. Xianger, save your father." Changyang Ba looked towards Jian Chen lifelessly, and spoke weakly. The light in his eyes was quickly disappearing, soon becoming dull. In the end, he laid on the ground, unmoving. Jian Chen's heart trembled greatly, while deep pangs of pain filled his heart. 2 streaks of sorrowful tears flowed from his eyes without any control. Although he was a saint ruler, he viewed his parents too importantly. It was an unimaginable mental blow to Jian Chen for his parents to die in front of him. He was no longer able to keep calm. This was because Jian Chen's greatest source of grief was what happened to his parents. The illusion conjured by the mist had already deeply affected Jian Chen. Arg! Jian Chen roared powerfully at the sky. The sound was earth-shaking, resounding in the entire region. With the roar, a great aura, along with extremely dense killing intent, began to radiate from his body, and the dragon-slaying sword immediately appeared in his hands. The chaotic force in his body poured steadily into the sword, causing it to glow brightly with its dark light. Afterwards, Jian Chen swung it towards the Earth Saint Masters who killed Changyang Ba with a devastating aura. Thrum! Suddenly, a loud and clear zither sound, like a huge bell, appeared. A powerful sound wave with visible ripples collided with the dragon-slaying sword, and the powerful strike directly forced the sword to bounce backwards. Not only did the bell-like sound block Jian Chen's attack, the remaining sound waves entered Jian Chen's mind. It collided with his spirit like a boulder, causing Jian Chen to feel like his head was exploding. He could not help but cry out painfully. Humph, to think you're a saint ruler. Just a mere, substandard illusions got you good. This is only the very outskirts of the fantasy star ocean, there's even more powerful illusion further on in. I really wonder how you're going to handle those. The heavenly enchantress's cold voice suddenly appeared in Jian Chen's mind. Jian Chen immediately snapped back to reality. Before, when he had swung his sword at the enemies that killed his parents, he had actually swung towards the heavenly enchantress. Chapter 8:16, Class 7 Magical Beast. The illusions here really are powerful, Jian Chen mumbled gently. His emotions, affected by the illusions before, had already calmed down slowly. The illusion wasn't strong, your mental state is just weak. The illusion sucked you in so easily. It originates from your heart and mind. If your heart and mind are flawless and free from worries, how would a mere illusion affect you? This illusion can be considered as the weakest type. There'll be even more powerful ones once you enter the fantasy star ocean. The heavenly enchantress spoke coldly. Looks like I'm overestimating you. You may have become a saint ruler, but your mental state is just too horrible. You're probably the saint ruler with the weakest mind in the entire continent. Perhaps coming to the fantasy star ocean with you was the wrong decision. The heavenly enchantress spoke coldly. Hearing that, Jian Chen immediately felt pained. He was a saint ruler, but he was, after all, still too young. Even with his 2 lifetimes combined, he was less than 100 years old. Meanwhile, all the other saint rulers were people who had lived for centuries, or even millennia, with enough descendants to form a large clan. Jian Chen completely overwhelmed them in terms of talent, but he was nowhere close in terms of life experience. The most severe part was his bonds with his parents. Jian Chen treated it with too much importance, practically viewing it with more important than his own life. He had clearly known that the images in the mist before were illusions, yet he still could not help but fall for them. Jian Chen still was unable to endure the things happening despite knowing it was all fake. If any other saint ruler had witnessed something similar, they would definitely not have fallen for it as easily as Jian Chen. Saint rulers who had lived for centuries, or even millennia, had plenty of descendants. They probably have witnessed some of them dying of old age themselves. As a result, they would no longer treated the bond of family as importantly and would have resisted the illusions easily. Illusions originated from the mind and heart. If there were concerns or obsessions, the mist would create illusions accordingly, displaying your weakest point right before you. Illusions did not test a person's strength, but a person's heart and mind. Jian Chen seemed to be decisive on the outside with a rock-hard heart, but this was only what he would display before his opponents. In actuality, there was still a soft area in his heart that his relatives occupied. Jian Chen's mind became much more resolute after experiencing what had happened before. He stared into the mist before him. The mist continued to surge, tossing about and changing around, as if there was something ready to come out. However, Jian Chen's state of mind immediately became like still water, free of any ripples. He did not think about anything, nor did he guess about anything, so, naturally, there was nothing. The next part of the journey was extremely peaceful. After over 2 hours of slow flying, he and the heavenly enchantress finally passed through the region of fog. The misty white blanket had finally disappeared from before them, replaced by deep blue seawater. Hiya, Jian Chen breathed out loudly. He felt much more relaxed after passing through the mist. He looked around, but only saw that the surroundings and sky were all a surface of white. They were enveloped by a layer of dense, yet odd, mist, as if it formed the edges of a separate world. Below him was deep blue sea water. The water was smooth, like a mirror, and without any ripples, stagnant. It was extremely strange. In the center of all that was a huge island. It had an extremely large surface area and did not seem like it could be called an island, but rather a small continent. The island was mountainous, littered with trees and was entirely blanketed by a thin layer of fog. It was hazy, adding on a layer of mysteriousness. Jian Chen stared brightly at the huge island before him and asked, "Is this perhaps the Fantasy Star Ocean?" The heavenly enchantress looked towards the island before her. She was rather stern, and she said, "Correct, this is the Fantasy Star Ocean, as well as the holy land of the former dragon clan, Dragon Island. It is said that Dragon Island was not originally like this, but became the current Fantasy Star Ocean after some unknown reason caused it to change." Jian Chen could not help but think back to the scene back in the City of God, when Class 8 magical beasts fled from the Saint artifact. There seemed to be a member of the Dragon clan among them. It said that the Dragon clan was one of the 4 great clans of the magical beasts, and have disappeared along with the Divine Phoenix clan since the ancient times. Would their disappearance have anything to do with Dragon Island? Or, in other words, did they all die on Dragon Island? Jian Chen asked in doubt. The heavenly enchantress shook her head gently. "I do not know much about what happened in that age either. The very limited information on this matter all originate from rumors, or those ancient records in Mercenary City. However, not a lot is recorded regarding Dragon Island." "Alright, let's stop guessing about this, there's no point. We're currently in the outskirts of the Fantasy Star Ocean. The fog was not the true danger in coming here, the dangers are on this island. When we enter the island, you have to be extra careful. The 100,000-year dragon saliva should be in the very center of the island." Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress both flew towards the island, landing on it soon after. In the ancient times, the Dragon clan filled Dragon Island with formations. These formations automatically absorb energy of the world to replenish themselves. Although it's been countless years since they were first laid down, a few that were set by remarkable experts still remain. They may not be as powerful as before, but you still need to be on guard. The heavenly enchantress explained to Jian Chen in detail about some areas that he needed to be aware of on Dragon Island. Jian Chen observed the island as he listened to the heavenly enchantress talk. They had already passed through the region of mist, but his presence was still suppressed by a mysterious power and was unable to be used at all. However, his sight, no longer obstructed, was much clearer now. The two of them slowly walked forwards, both extremely careful as they traveled. At this very moment, the ground suddenly began to violently shake. 4 earthen walls rose from the ground, forming a jail-like room and trapping the two of them inside. The earthen walls radiated with a faint, golden luster. An extremely powerful and pure energy vaguely radiated from the earthen walls. Soon afterwards, earthen spears coated in golden light began to appear from the walls. With whistling sounds, they shot towards the entrapped Jian Chen and Heavenly Enchantress at lightning speed. Dense clusters of spears shot from all directions, locking the two of them out of any paths for escape. There was only the misty white sky left for them to flee. Remember, you must never fly above 10 meters in the sky in the Fantasy Star Ocean. The dangers in the sky is several times greater than on the ground. The Heavenly Enchantress's cold voice appeared in Jian Chen's mind as she faced the spears calmly and unperturbed. Shortly afterwards, she gently struck a string with her finger, and a zither note rang out. It spread out in all directions as a visible wave of sound. The sound wave contained an unbelievable power. Wherever it passed by, the earthen spears disintegrated, turning into a pile of dust in the air. The visible sound wave cut through the surroundings like a hot knife through butter before colliding forcefully with the earthen walls that ensnared them in. With a rumble, the walls trembled violently before disintegrating as well. The confining earthen walls could only be used against Heaven Saint Masters. It was nothing to Saint Rulers. However, if a Heaven Saint Master had been trapped by it, it would be almost guaranteed death. Breaking out of the earthen walls, Jian Chen and the Heavenly Enchantress continued on their way, walking directly towards the general region of the island. In the following part of the journey, they both experienced constant attacks from various traps. However, these attacks were clearly only prepared for Heaven Saint Masters and were unable to pose much of a threat at all to Saint Rulers. The journey was frightening, but not very dangerous. Roar! Suddenly, a loud beast roared in the distance. Soon afterwards, the ground began to shake gently. A humanoid giant of over 300 meters in height ran towards them from afar at great speeds, constantly roaring along the way. That's a war beast. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes and growled to himself. The war beast ahead had already reached Class 7 as a magical beast, and was equivalent to human Saint Rulers. The Heavenly Enchantress stared coldly at the war beast. Her finger moved gently on the zither string, and a sound wave immediately shot out towards the incoming war beast in the shape of a sharp arrow. Shwit! The arrow formed from sound pierced through the warbeast's chest. The warbeast's overwhelmingly powerful defense was akin to tofu before it, and the arrow punched a head-sized hole with no difficulty. However, no blood flowed out. The warbeast seemed to feel no pain, continuing onwards towards the two of them with great steps as it roared mindlessly along the way. The Heavenly Enchantress remained the same as before. Her white, elegant hands constantly danced around on the zither, producing beautiful sounds from playing it. With each note, a powerful sound wave shot out with lightning speed and struck the warbeast's body. The warbeast did not dodge at all and continued in its charge towards the two of them in a straight line. Meanwhile, its huge, 300-meter-tall body was now riddled with holes while its head was already smashed to smithereens. But even with all that, even with its head missing, the warbeast did not die. It did not even bleed, much less show pain. It continued charging at the two of them without any pauses. Witnessing something so strange, Jian Chen was overwhelmed with shock and horror. He found it unbelievable. Chapter 8:17 Living Corpses. Jian Chen stared at the huge, headless and holy warbeast with an odd light in his eyes. He was perturbed. The warbeast had received fatal injuries, yet it still was not dead. This was unbelievable. Gentle zither sounds, concealing killing intent within, constantly rang out. The Heavenly Enchantress's gaze remained calm throughout. Her right hand danced about on the zither strings, sending out waves of powerful sound at the huge warbeast. The warbeast's injuries became even worse after receiving such dense attacks. Its two limbs were quickly severed, while a large portion of its chest shattered. It had shrunken to 150 meters in height from the original 300. Any other magical beasts would have passed away long ago if they were in such a state. It was guaranteed death. However, the warbeast behaved as if it was completely uninjured. its remaining half of the abdomen and its huge, thick legs continuing to run with huge steps. Each and every step seemed to be able to collapsing mountains, causing the ground to tremble constantly. The war beast was soon less than a kilometer away from the duo. Jian Chen was extraordinarily grim. The ruler armament, the dragon-slaying sword, had already appeared in his hand. However, the tiny crack on the sword that caused it to seem flawed. The scene before him was weird. The war beast seemed like an unkillable Class 7 magical beast. Jian Chen was unable to remain his calm after witnessing this. At that very moment, consecutive closely packed and frantic zither notes rang out. The heavenly enchantress's right hand had slid across the zither, playing 16 of the 36 strings together. Immediately, a series of densely packed sound waves radiated outwards, filling up the space before them with visible ripples. The ripples joined together like a spider web, before quickly shooting towards the war beast like a fishnet. The fishnet of sound passed through the war beast's body without any obstructions, and disappeared into the distance. Shortly afterwards, the huge war beast collapsed loudly. Its entire body had become meter-wide cubes of flesh that fell to the ground, carved into countless portions by the net of sound waves. The war beast died with an annihilated body. Jian Chen stared fixedly at the countless pieces of flesh from the war beast as interest in his eyes. He could not see even the slightest blood at all. This was very abnormal. "Senior, just what is this?" Jian Chen asked the heavenly enchantress. His heart was filled with endless doubt. After a period of silence, the heavenly enchantress replied, "This war beast has died countless years ago, but because of some reason in the Fantasy Star Ocean, it managed to survive as a living corpse. It has no soul or blood, and it can't feel pain. All that is left is an indestructible saint ruler body." "Indestructible?" Jian Chen murmured softly. He thought back to what happened before, as if in thought. "The war beast in front of you cannot be killed, no matter what you do. Even if you obliterate its body, it'll fully recover in no time," the heavenly enchantress continued. The countless pieces of flesh on the ground began to move about in one place as soon as she finished speaking, as if it was providing evidence for her statement. It condensed into the 300-meter-tall war beast once again after just a short while. Its body was completely unharmed, and even its head had recovered to how it was before without the slightest sign of injury. Jian Chen's pupils narrowed to the size of a needle, and he immediately gasped coldly. He exclaimed in wonder, "So there really are weird things like these in the world. My horizons really have been broadened today." Jian Chen turned to the heavenly enchantress and asked, "Senior, so how would one handle this war beast? It consumes a great amount of energy every time it reconstructs its body, and its strength will decrease slightly as well. There's only one way to handle it, which is to constantly obliterate its body to get it to constantly consume energy, until it's used up so much energy that it can't rebuild its body," the heavenly enchantress said. "Aren't we able to just run away from it?" Jian Chen asked. "If you do that, it'll just keep following you. Also, we can't move around carelessly in the Fantasy Star Ocean, so we can't shake it off. Once you let it follow you, the commotion will draw in even more mutated Class 7 magical beasts, as well as human saint rulers that have also devolved like that." As she spoke, the heavenly enchantress had already struck the zither, continuing her sound wave attacks at the war beast. Watching as the war beast drew closer and closer, Jian Chen clenched his teeth and rushed up to it with his ruler armament, embroiling in a battle. Under their teamwork, the Class 7 war beast did not last very long at all before being obliterated once again. However, its body quickly began to rebuild once again. It gave out an earth-trembling roar, and attacked Jian Chen mindlessly. The war beast was chopped into countless pieces by Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress time after time. Its strength decreased greatly every time it rebuilt its body. After killing it a dozen or so times, the war beast was finally unable to restore its body due to the overconsumption of energy. Its diced body parts lay scattered on the ground. The heavenly enchantress walked over leisurely from afar with her zither in her arms. She did not even look at the war beast. The Class 7 magical beasts here have already died an unknown number of years ago. They don't have any monster cores to be retrieved, and after it absorbs enough energy it'll continue rejuvenating again. You won't be able to stop their revival, even if you turn their bodies to ashes. Let's go. The commotion from before was too loud. Other Class 7 magical beasts are probably going to rush over very soon. Jian Chen glanced deeply at the countless pieces of dried flesh. He did not say anything, and silently followed the heavenly enchantress away. Just as the two of them traveled a mere 10 kilometers, they immediately felt several powerful presences appear behind them. They were all from magical beasts and humans that had all reached Saint Ruler. Not too long afterwards, another dozen or so weaker presences appeared from behind, all of which were classed 6 magical beasts and human heaven saint masters. Jian Chen looked back. Through the thin mist, he could see several human figures and silhouettes of huge magical beasts currently pacing mindlessly around the war beast. Jian Chen understood that they were the same as the war beast, organisms that had died an unknown number of years ago, leaving behind only a body that was turned into a living corpse by the mysterious energy of the fantasy star ocean. They had no intelligence nor souls, and moved about according to their instincts. Conceal your entire presence. Don't make any signs to alert them. We may not fear them, but getting tangled with them will be problematic. The heavenly enchantress's voice appeared in Jian Chen's mind. Just how many Class 7 magical beasts and saint rulers are there? Jian Chen asked. He was extremely grim. All the Class 7 magical beasts and saint rulers in the fantasy star ocean possessed indestructible bodies. They felt no pain and had no fear. If the two of them were surrounded by these living corpses, it would be extremely troublesome or even life-threatening. The fantasy star ocean has already existed for countless years. During that period of time, plenty of human experts and high-class magical beasts have ventured into it. Some of the saint rulers were even famous, thousands of millenniums ago. Some of these have fallen in search for or battling over treasure, while others have died simply because of the fantasy star ocean. Over the years, the experts that have died in the fantasy star ocean have already accumulated a terrifying number. Every person that dies here will become like them, immortal and unaging. As a result, the number of saint rulers and high-class magical beasts in the fantasy star ocean will only increase, and never decrease. Today, probably even powerful organizations like the 10 Protector clans or Mercenary City have no idea about exactly how many saint rulers there are in the fantasy star ocean. There are even saint kings and Class 8 magical beasts other than saint rulers. As a result, we need to be extremely careful as we travel through this place. When we encounter those living corpses, we must never provoke it ourselves, even if it's just a heaven saint master. Once you do provoke one, the activity will draw even more powerful living corpses. If you die in the fantasy star ocean, you'll become a living corpse too, just like them. The heavenly enchantress spoke using a communication technique. Jian Chen felt even more heavy-hearted. No wonder the fantasy star ocean was a zone of danger only second to the death nest. There would only be certain death if a heaven saint master had ventured it. Only saint rulers possessed some ability to protect themselves, and even they needed to be extremely careful. Otherwise, they could easily face life-threatening dangers with just a lapse in concentration. Suddenly, the scene before them changed greatly. The original island disappeared instantly, replaced by an endless desert. A flaming red sun hung in the sky, scorching the ground with terrifying heat, raising the temperature of the entire region to a terrifyingly high temperature. Crap, we've fallen into a formation. The heavenly enchantress furrowed her eyebrows and spoke with a deep voice. Jian Chen immediately produced his ruler armament, and looked around for any activity vigilantly. He was already in peak condition, ready for battle. He had witnessed the horrors of the Fantasy Star Ocean, so he did not dare to be careless at all. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble violently. The ground where Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress stood slowly began to sink into the ground and, at the same time, their feet were trapped by the moving sand, constantly sucking and dragging both of them underground. "Fly!" The heavenly enchantress spoke coldly. With a flick of a finger, a sound wave immediately collided with the ground, turning the sand trapping their legs into dust. She immediately began to float. Jian Chen did not hesitate either. Chaotic force surged violently in his body before welling at the soles of his feet and gushing out. The devastating energy turned the sand into dust, propelling him out of the ground. The sand below the two of them constantly sank down, forming a huge black hole. A putrid smell wafted from it. Just a breath of it was suffocating. Soon afterwards, the entire desert began to tremble violently before forming a weird but huge, 10,000-meter-long monster. The horrid gaping cavern below the two of them was the enormous mouth of the beast. The monster seemed like an gecko that had been magnified countless times. It was earthen yellow, and gave off an scorching heat. Its entire body was formed from sand. This is a region created from the fusion of a killing formation and an illusionary formation. The heavenly enchantress mumbled softly. She could tell that it was all an illusion with a single glance. Chapter 7:18 Saint Ruler Killing Formation. Jian Chen looked at the giant, 10,000-meter-long earthworm below his feet and became extremely solemn. Chaotic force immediately poured into the ruler armament in his hand, causing the hazy glow of the weapon to be suppressed and immediately replaced by a dark light, radiating with the presence and energy of destruction. The heavenly enchantress glanced down at the earthworm below before looking upwards at the huge, scorching sun of terrifying heat. She hoarsely said, "This is a Saint Ruler Killing Formation, a formation specially prepared to kill Saint Rulers. Once a Saint Ruler falls into it, it's almost certain death. Even 9th heavenly layer Saint Rulers are not exempted from this. With the corrosion of time, the formation is no longer as powerful as it once was, though it is still extremely powerful. Let's use our full strength and burst through this formation," Jian Chen growled. "The true danger comes from the sky, not from the earthworm below us. You handle the earthworm. I'll break the formation." The heavenly enchantress's tone was also rather grim. Shortly afterwards, she sat down cross-legged in the air and placed the zither of demonic cry on her knees. She began to play at both of her hands, ready to burst through the formation with the force of sound. As the zither was played, sound waves visible with the naked eye shot towards the scorching sun in the sky with lightning speed. The densely packed waves shook the surrounding space, causing the space in this region to ripple like water. In that very moment, the entire region seemed to have become an extremely huge zither, where the water-like ripples in space functioned as constantly trembling strings. Jian Chen raised his head and looked at the sun. His eyes narrowed very slightly, by an undetectable amount. The sun in the sky was not a real sun, but rather a huge killing mechanism. It grew larger and larger as he watched it, as if it was descending with a terrifying speed, falling towards the two of them. With the descent of the sun, the surrounding temperature shot up abruptly. The region seemed to become a huge oven as even the air was vaporized. Roar! The giant earthworm, completely made of sand, gave out a great roar from below. Its great, pitch-black and cavernous mouth gave off a stink as it shot into the sky to bite at Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress. A serious light flashed across Jian Chen's eyes. He no longer looked at the sky, instead placing all his attention onto the earthworm below. Although it was created from the formation, the sand beast was very powerful, equivalent to a Class 7 magical beast. Jian Chen arrived before the earthworm with a flash. With the dragon-slaying sword in his hand, he stabbed into the head with great speed. Chaotic force, churning with the aura of destruction, immediately spewed out from the dragon-slaying sword, wreaking havoc wildly in the earthworm's head. As soon as head of sand met the chaotic force, it turned to dust from the aura of destruction. The sand immediately began to loosen, turning into large quantities of dust and gushed away. In the blink of an eye, a huge hole appeared in the great head, like someone had forcefully carved away a portion of flesh. But the earthworm was just like the living dead, just like the war beast. It felt no pain, no fear, absolutely nothing even from such wounds. It followed up with a growl, and a spike completely condensed from sand emerged from its head, rushing at Jian Chen with lightning speed. The spike was made of sand, yet it contained a powerful energy. Not only was it extremely fast, it was extremely tough as well. Jian Chen shot backwards quickly. The dragon-slaying sword turned into a black streak of light, lashing out and colliding with the incoming spike. With a metallic screech, the tough spike cracked immediately, but the powerful collision between the two was still enough to jolt Jian Chen violently. The completely unremarkable spike was actually as powerful as a strike from a fifth heavenly layer saint ruler. Swish, 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 swish. Ear-piercing swishes constantly rang out as spikes emerged from the earthworm's body, one after another. It formed a net, encasing Jian Chen, and, at the same time, the earthworm raised its huge front leg and quickly stopped down on Jian Chen. It completely locked Jian Chen out of the choice to escape upwards. Jian Chen became grim. The hundreds of incoming spikes were equivalent to strikes dealt by hundreds of fifth heavenly layer saint rulers. He did not have the power to withstand like that with his current strength. He moved his body slightly, leaving behind a blur where he originally stood. He had already traversed hundreds of meters with extremely great speed, appearing beyond the range of the hundreds of spikes and the giant leg. Here, his abilities as a saint ruler were suppressed and any type of spiritual sensing suffered a decrease in effect. He could not use spatial force, so all he could do in such a tight position was use the illusionary flash, the movement technique he had not used since very long ago. The illusionary flash was an extremely profound battle skill, though Jian Chen would always use spatial force to travel ever since he became a saint ruler. As a result, the illusionary flash was no longer as useful to him as before, which led to him slowly forgetting it. Only after being forced into the situation today did Jian Chen use the illusionary flash once again. He moved once again after dodging the attacks from the hundreds of spikes. He immediately appeared on the huge back of the earthworm with a trail of countless vague, blurry figures and thrust the dragon-slaying sword viciously into it with destructive chaotic force. He drew it out immediately afterwards, and with a slight movement of his body, he would reappear hundreds of meters away, stabbing the back of the earthworm once again like before. Like this, Jian Chen managed to stab the earthworm's huge body hundreds of times very soon. Every strike turned the sand of the earthworm's body into dust, dealing great damage to it. After so many attacks, the earthworm had been reduced to several hundred meters in length, while the dust from the sand below had already formed mountainous piles. As Jian Chen battled the earthworm, the temperature of the surroundings also shot up rapidly, becoming terrifyingly hot. The scorching sun in the sky grew bigger and bigger, falling towards the two of them. The heavenly enchantress sat cross-legged in the air. Her slender hands slid across the zither of the demonic cry with a rhythm as sound waves shot out from the zither. They collided with the descending sun in the sky, causing the sky to constantly rumble with a deep sound. The unadorned yet unique zither of the demonic cry had a total of 36 strings. The heavenly enchantress only played 20 of them, completely avoiding the other 16 throughout the whole process. Jian Chen raised his head and glanced at the huge sun. He became even grimmer. He knew that the huge sun was the real killing mechanism of the trap. Once the sun collided with the group, even this world would perhaps be destroyed. Even saint rulers would struggle to survive. I need to finish this off as fast as possible, Jian Chen thought, before appearing before the shrunken earthworm. He raised the dragon-slaying sword high over his head, poured surging chaotic force into it, before striking downwards from the sky. An enormous sword ray, completely condensed from chaotic force, disappeared into the earthworm's head. It passed through its entire body, exiting at the tail. The earthworm was no longer as tough and powerful as before. Jian Chen's strike had directly cut it in half. Its body was reduced a pile of dust, collapsing onto the ground and forming a heap of sand, akin to a small mountain. Jian Chen did not stop after dealing with the earthworm. He immediately shot into the sky, resisting the unbelievable temperature to fly towards the sun. Jian Chen knew that this was not the time to be conserving his chaotic force. His chaotic Niden in his dantian began to pump out chaotic force unsparingly, even though it had already shrunken, all coalescing in the dragon-slaying sword. Afterwards, several strands of sword chi were sent flying at the sun. Boom, boom, boom. Consecutive deep booms rang through the sky and the expanding sun began to tremble gently. However, its speed of descent did not decrease at all. Move back. Your energy might be strange, but with the ruler armament, it's only the 5th heavenly layer at most. Attacks with that much power is not enough to break through the killing formation at all. Let me do it. The heavenly enchantress's emotionless voice appeared in Jian Chen's head. With that, Jian Chen immediately felt pained. He knew that the chaotic force he controlled was an extremely powerful energy, but it still could not be considered as true chaotic force. He currently had only reached the first layer of the 18 layers, possessing strength equivalent to a 3rd heavenly layer Saint Ruler. He could only display a strength of the 5th heavenly layer when he wielded a ruler armament. Only when he reached the 18th layer would the chaotic force he controlled be the true chaotic force. Jian Chen put the ruler armament away and slowly descended from the sky. He had secretly made up his mind that after he left the Fantasy Star Ocean, he would definitely find a way to increase his overall strength. Just the first layer of the chaotic body is equivalent the strength of a 3rd heavenly layer Saint Ruler. I wonder just what level my strength will reach after I reach the 2nd layer of the chaotic body. Jian Chen anticipated it very much as he thought. The heavenly enchantress continued to concentrate on playing the zither. Sound waves constantly shot towards the descending sun, producing booms after booms. The explosion of every sound wave would leave behind an odd energy in the surroundings, floating slowly around the huge sun, and it lingered. This was the power of sound waves from the zither. Soon, more and more energy gathered around the sun, before virtually permeating the entire sky. At that moment, the heavenly enchantress stopped playing. She slowly raised her head at the dazzling sun, and her elegant finger, as white as sheepskin, gently struck the 21st string. Ding! A clear, crisp sound rang out when the string was struck. The sound carried an extremely powerful ability for penetration, while the note constantly echoed about despite not being very loud. The energy around the scorching sun immediately became violent. Shortly afterwards, it exploded and a deafening boom rang out. The entire world shook violently, as if the world was ending. The sun in the sky had cracked in half from the explosion, before immediately disintegrating into countless pieces, raining down everywhere. With the destruction of the sun, the killing formation was also successfully broken. Everything before Jian Chen began to distorted and the sandy world slowly disappeared. He had returned to the Fantasy Star Ocean once again. Chapter 819, Fierce Battle with Living Corpses. 1. Jian Chen sighed deeply as he looked at the familiar surroundings. He felt a wave of lingering fear as soon as he thought about the situation before, how they had fallen into the Saint Ruler killing formation. The killing formation was capable of wiping out any and all Saint Rulers. Even 9th heavenly Saint Rulers would struggle to survive if they fell into it. The formation was still extremely powerful despite having grown weaker with the corrosion of time. He was actually unable to break his way out at all with his attacks at the 5th heavenly layer. If it were not for the fact that he was with the heavenly enchantress, Jian Chen really did not have any idea of how he would have been able to escape. Even if he did not die, he would be greatly injured. The fantasy star ocean really is terrifying. Those saint rulers turned living corpses after they died here are already terrifying enough, but compared to the formations, they seem like a piece of cake, Jian Chen thought. He feared the power of the formations very much. If he had encountered living corpses of similar, he could at least escape if he could not fight them. After all, the living corpses possessed no intelligence, they were easy to deal with. On the other hand, formations were capable of creating a world of its own when someone fell into it, a whole separate domain, sealing off all means of escape. The only way would be to break through the formation, and if the person was not strong enough for that, their only choice was to receive its destructive attacks. Perhaps because they had broken their way out of the formation, hand-width cracks covered the ground of a radius of 5 kilometers. The cracks formed a circle, seemingly perfectly outlining a complicated pattern. The formation here was cast down by experts of the Dragon Clan. It's extremely well hidden, so it can catch people completely off guard. We need to be careful in the future. It's fortunate that the formation just then was not as powerful as before, or it wouldn't have been that easy to break free from it. The heavenly enchantress said indifferently. Jian Chen nodded sternly. His fear for the formations was even greater than the heavenly enchantresses. Several powerful presences quickly flew over from the distance at that moment. Saint Ruler living corpses were attracted here by the commotion, hurrying over from all directions. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress immediately erased their presences completely before shooting off silently. The living corpses all behaved instinctively, they were unable to perceive things visually, unable to see anything. They completely relied on sensing foreign presences and activity to search for living organisms. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress traveled far from where they were before. Living corpses that hurried over in the meantime, from everywhere. They all stopped where the two of them were before lifelessly. They paced about mindlessly, without dispersing for a very long time. The two of them advanced carefully, where the heavenly enchantress discovered traces of many formations and a few living corpses, both human and magical beast. They kept a wide distance from them, so the journey was frightening, but without any harm. The two of them did not dare to fly too quickly at all. They had only traversed less than 2,000 kilometers in over half a day, still in the outskirts of the fantasy star ocean. They had not even reached the general region of the island. The sky, concealed by a thick layer of fog, darkened slowly, the darkness of night filled up the fantasy star ocean slowly. Weirdly enough, both of them were unable to see in the darkness of the fantasy star ocean, which caused the range of their vision to shrink constantly. The heavenly enchantress traveled with her zither in her hands. She looked at the darkening sky, and her bewitching eyes became rather stern. She said, "It's darkening. It's not suitable for us to travel at night. We need to find a stop to rest for the night and continue tomorrow. Junior virtually knows nothing about the circumstances here. Junior will follow with whatever decisions Senior makes," Jian Chen replied calmly. Afterwards, Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress spent over an hour to find a cave that was spacious enough. The cave curved about inside and was about 100 meters long, so they did not fear that they would be seen inside. At the end of the cave, the heavenly enchantress produced a fist-sized luminous pearl from her space ring and lodged it into the roof of the cave. It shone with a gently light, illuminating the darkness. In the fantasy star ocean, the living corpses were extremely sensitive to any ripples of energy ripples as well as objects that never usually appeared in the fantasy star ocean. This was why they could not light a fire. The heat and smoke would travel outside and draw in the living corpses. The only way for light was through the luminous pearl. The heavenly enchantress sat down and slowly closed her eyes after lodging the pearl in place. She paid no attention to Jian Chen. Jian Chen also found a clean part of the ground and sat down with his legs crossed. He glanced to his side, to the purple-dressed heavenly enchantress who always kept her face concealed. He could not help but think about the first time he met the heavenly enchantress. He immediately became depressed. He still remembered the first time they had met. It happened in the holy land of Mercenary City several years ago. He was just an unremarkable Earth Saint Master at that time. Even a Heaven Saint Master would view him as an equal, let alone Saint Rulers. Now that a few years had passed, he had grown from the original, puny Earth Saint Master to his current level of cultivation. He stood on equal ground with Saint Rulers, and had even battled alongside the beautiful heavenly enchantress. Jian Chen would have never even thought of this if it were before. Even when he thought back now, he still felt like he was living in a dream. Jian Chen sighed deeply and slowly calmed himself down. Looking away from the heavenly enchantress, he cast away the distracting thoughts in his mind and began to look into his body's situation. Inside Jian Chen's dantian, his chaotic Niden had clearly shrunk by another portion from the soybean size it was before from the usage in the Saint Ruler killing formation. Even less chaotic force remained. The chaotic Niden would definitely disperse after all the chaotic force was consumed if he were to continue fight so intensely a few more times. Understanding his chaotic Niden situation, Jian Chen furrowed his eyebrows tightly. Chaotic force was the source of his strength. If he lost it, he was only as powerful as a first heavenly layer Saint Ruler. And with the suppression of Saint Ruler abilities in the Fantasy Star Ocean, his strength would suffer another big hit. He would not be able to survive in the danger-ridden Fantasy Star Ocean at all. I need to quickly recover my chaotic force. I still have quite a lot of monster cores on me, so I wonder how much chaotic force I can refine from all the cores, Jian Chen thought, but if I refine chaotic force in the Fantasy Star Ocean, residue energy will leak out and it'll definitely be sensed by the Saint Ruler living corpses. Also, we're only staying in this cave for a night. We need to continue on our way tomorrow, so time's very short. I can't make it. Plus the heavenly enchantress is resting next to me. Even if I ignore everything else and proceed with refining chaotic force, the secrets of the Azulate swords will definitely leak out. Looks like right now is not the time to replenish my chaotic force. As he thought, Jian Chen became rather perturbed. He stood up and walked towards the exit of the cave, planning to get some fresh air. What are you trying to do? At that very moment, a chime-like voice appeared from behind him. Jian Chen abruptly stopped and looked backwards as he heard it. The heavenly enchantress had already opened her eyes. Her limpid eyes seemed to contain ripples like autumn water, staring at Jian Chen with a bewitching charm. Jian Chen remained calm and stared back at the heavenly enchantress. I'm going outside to check on the situation. The heavenly enchantress slowly closed her eyes and said gently, remember that this is the Fantasy Star Ocean and not elsewhere. You can't make trouble, not only will you lose your life, you'll end up pulling me down with you. Senior, don't worry. I know what I should do. I'm not going to mess around with my life. Jian Chen laughed gently, before concealing his presence. He walked outside silently. It was already pitch black outside the cave. The sky was dark, devoid of any stars. Jian Chen's vision was affected by the darkness in the Fantasy Star Ocean as well. It was not as bad as the fog where his hand would leave his range of vision if extended, though it was still limited to only several hundred meters. Deathly silence lingered in the surroundings, with no sound at all. It was as if only the heavenly enchantress and him were in the entirety of the Fantasy Star Ocean without any other traces of life. Jian Chen sat down on a rock to the side. He did not make any sound at all. He sat in thought, mulling over some matters. Suddenly, Jian Chen's ears twitched slightly. Soon after, a gleam of light immediately flickered in his dull eyes. He suddenly raised his head and stared fixedly into the distance, becoming grim in that very instant. A while later, several dark figures slowly emerged in Jian Chen's vision range. They traveled on the ground, walking directly in Jian Chen's direction with walking speed. Their movements were stiff like machines. Jian Chen's expression changed greatly. He became extremely stern, and carefully sucked in all of his presence. He silently got off the rock and slowly backed away as he watched the figures from hundreds of meters away, directly backing into the cave. Crap, they've actually come for the cave. Jian Chen was shocked. He rushed to the end of the cave without any hesitation. He needed to tell the heavenly enchantress about this. Perhaps she had sensed Jian Chen's hurried steps. The heavenly enchantress had already opened her eyes when she arrived at the end of the cave. She stared at him brightly. The heavenly enchantress always maintained her vigilance in the always dangerous Fantasy Star Ocean. Crap Senior, there's a few Saint Ruler currently heading towards the cave. Jian Chen immediately communicated via a technique. Hearing that, the heavenly enchantress's expression changed abruptly. She stood up suddenly, eyebrows furrowed and expression grim. She could handle a few fallen Saint Ruler living corpses, but it would definitely lead to a great commotion once they began fighting. It would alert even more living corpses, and it was night right now. Visibility in the Fantasy Star Ocean was too limited, while the dangers were unknown. It was even more dangerous than fleeing in the day. Just how far are they from the cave? The heavenly enchantress replied with a communication technique. Her tone was stern. Around 500 meters. Jian Chen replied. Neither of them dared to speak aloud. This cave must have been where they once stayed. Quickly, we need to leave here immediately. The heavenly enchantress showed no hesitation, running towards the outside with the zither in her arms while Jian Chen followed closely behind her. Chapter 820, Fierce Battle with Living Corpses. 2. Both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress knew the outcome extremely well if they met the living corpses. Even with their presences hidden, the living corpses still would be able to sense them if they became too close. The two of them hurried out of the cave. They moved completely silently, without any sound at all. Both of them changed in expressions when they arrived at the entrance of the cave. There were 7 human living corpses, and they had already arrived within 50 meters of the cave entrance. They were all expressionless, with lifeless eyes and stiff movements like machines. When Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress arrived at the entrance of the cave, the 7 incoming Saint Ruler all paused simultaneously. Powerful auras immediately began to radiate from their bodies as surging energy trembled in their bodies. The region turned into a storm of energy instantly. Both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress darkened in complexion. They knew that they had been detected by the 7 Saint Rulers. Without any hesitation, they immediately made their preparations for battle. Jian Chen drew the dragon-slaying sword from his space ring. Roar! The fallen Saint Rulers all produced monster-like roars at the same time. They no longer remained like before with the roar, becoming much more nimble. With a few blurs, the 7 Saint Rulers all charged at Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress. The chaotic force in Jian Chen's body flowed steadily into the dragon-slaying sword. Wielding it with his right hand, he used the illusionary flash, arriving before one of the Saint Rulers instantly in the form of a blur. He stabbed the sword that radiated with the energy of destruction into the corpse's chest with lightning speed. The living corpse did not show any intentions of dodging as it faced Jian Chen's attack. It paid no attention to Jian Chen's sword, directly throwing a punch at him. SHWT. The dragon-slaying sword passed through the person's chest without any obstructions, reappearing on the other side. Again, there was no blood, or even any signs of pain on the person's face. Meanwhile, his fist continued towards to Jian Chen with a great strength. Jian Chen used the illusionary flash, dodging the Saint Ruler's punch with unbelievable speed. Abruptly slashing with the dragon-slaying sword, it directly chopped away half of the Saint Ruler's chest, leaving only half of his body connecting the upper torso and lower half. At this very moment, another 2 Saint Rulers attacked Jian Chen at the same time from the side. Their attacks were extremely simple, bluntly hurling their fists without any fancy tricks. Jian Chen dodged the attacks with the illusionary flash. The dragon-slaying sword swept through the air as a black streak of light with a destructive aura, severing the other half of the first Saint Ruler's body. He had directly bisected the Saint Ruler. However, that Saint Ruler did not die. His lower half, with his legs, quickly approached Jian Chen, directly kicking at him. At the same time, its arms on the upper torso pressed down on the ground, hurling itself at Jian Chen with great speeds, hurling 2 punches with both hands powerfully at Jian Chen. Jian Chen remained expressionless. His right had moved, and the dragon-slaying sword was immediately thrusted out countless times at devastating speeds. The densely packed blurs seemed to form a closely knit net, enveloping the severed Saint Ruler's body parts layer after layer. Jian Chen's sword was known for its speed. In that very moment, he had thrust his sword out over 100 times with unbelievable speed. Right now, the closely knit net seemed to become like a meat grinder, directly shredding the Saint Ruler's 2 halves into countless pieces of dried flesh. Although the living corpses were Saint Rulers, they completely lost their special abilities as Saint Rulers and their battle experience even though their strength remained at Saint Ruler level. They had no Saint weapon, were unable to use the mysteries of the world and did not even have the most basic awareness for dodging or resisting. All they knew was to attack outsiders with their fists, to slaughter the outsiders. As a result, the strength of the fallen Saint Ruler living corpses were far from before, able to be easily sliced into countless pieces by Jian Chen. Finishing off a Saint Ruler, Jian Chen immediately used the illusionary flash, disappearing instantly. Just when Jian Chen disappeared, 2 fists brutally spaced into the empty space he was before. The power created a sonic boom. Plop! Suddenly, a black light flashed, and one of the Saint Ruler's arms broke off. Jian Chen had already appeared beside him like a ghost, easily severing of their arms with the dragon-slaying sword. At the same time, the Saint Ruler diced up by Jian Chen reformed its body, continuing its charge at Jian Chen, currently completely unharmed and fully healed. On the other side, the heavenly enchantress fought the 4 other human Saint Rulers. She carried her zither in her left hand while her left hand constantly danced about on top of it. Sound waves collided with the 4 Saint Rulers one after another. Every sound wave would create a great hole as they hit them, and the knockback was so powerful that the 4 struggled to advance forwards. Although the heavenly enchantress took a different path of cultivation, her strength clearly was much greater than Jian Chen's. The special soundwave attacks carried a great strength, able to stop the advance of 4 Saint Rulers without much difficulty at all. It was even enough to make the 4 of them retreat, unable to approach the heavenly enchantress no matter what. The heavenly enchantress played the 20 strings with a rhythm. Each soundwave shot out from the zither of the demonic cry as her fingers moved, and whenever a soundwave would collide with one of the 4 Saint Rulers, it would leave behind some energy of the zither in the air. Slowly, the residue energy accumulated and became denser and denser, and when it reached a certain level, the heavenly enchantress also stopped playing. She looked towards Jian Chen and called out, "Retreat quickly." Hearing it, Jian Chen did not hesitate at all. He immediately gave up on his opponent, turning into a chain of blurry figures and retreating to the heavenly enchantress's side. The heavenly enchantress's finger slowly fell on the 21st string, which caused it to fluctuate gently. The 21st zither string produced a clear sound. It began to tremble heavily, and shortly afterwards, the zither energy that had accumulated in the air suddenly became extremely violent. With a boom, the zither energy immediately exploded, where the violent ripples directly ripped the 7 Saint Ruler living corpses to shreds. Roar! 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 The commotion of battle here had alerted the experts far away. Immediately, dozens of beast-like roars resounded from far away in all directions. The roars flooded the sky, essentially resounding throughout the entire Fantasy Star Ocean in the pitch-black sky. Immediately, a dozen or so presences radiated over from different directions, and even further away, an even more powerful presence faintly appeared. "Leave here quickly," the heavenly enchantress said hoarsely. She could already feel the appearance of a terrifying presence, something that would even be able to cause her fear. It was a Saint King living corpse. Jian Chen also became extremely grim. Although his sensory abilities were suppressed in the Fantasy Star Ocean, he was still able to clearly feel the presences of saint rulers. He had also discovered that at least several dozen saint rulers were currently flanking them from all directions. Once they were trapped, the outcome would be virtually disastrous. It could even attract even more experts. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress fled at top speed, fleeing into the distance as fast as they could. However, before they could get any further, the 7 saint rulers ripped into smithereens by the sound waves had reformed. They all roared at the 2 of them, who had yet to flee far. A sliver of cold light flashed across the heavenly enchantress's eyes. She immediately placed the zither of the demonic cry before her, beginning to play it. However, with a flash from beside her, Jian Chen had already charged at the 7 saint rulers using the illusionary flash as he carried the dragon-slaying sword. He called out, "I'll keep them busy. You hurry up and escape." The heavenly enchantress looked around the surroundings. She could feel that the experts rushing over from all directions were getting closer and closer. She said with a deep voice, "It's extremely difficult for you to throw them off in an extremely short amount of time with your strength. Once the living corpses arrive and surround you, it'll be difficult for you to survive in the Fantasy Star Ocean, which is also littered with formations." Jian Chen used the dragon-slaying sword and stabbed out dozens of times instantly with an aura of destruction, dicing one of the saint rulers with a mere face-off. He cried out, "Don't worry about me. My saint ruler abilities are suppressed here, so I can't use spatial force to flee. Once the 2 of us get surrounded, it'll be difficult for you to escape. I have a profound movement battle kill, so even if I get surrounded, I have the ability hold them off. I'll find a way myself to shake them off." Jian Chen's voice was heard by the heavenly enchantress clearly. For a moment, the heavenly enchantress's gaze became complicated. She stood there in hesitation and did not leave immediately. What Jian Chen said had deeply touched her. She had never thought that in dog-eat-dog continent of Tian Yuan, where it was filled with malevolent people, there would actually be someone so stupid that they would take an almost fatal risk to block several dozens of saint rulers, just to earn some precious time for stranger that they had only met several days ago to escape. In a situation where death was virtually guaranteed, even brother related by blood could betray each other, let alone a stranger. Jian Chen's actions immediately caused a great change to the heavenly enchantress's gaze towards him. She stood there as light flickered through her eyes uneasily. She did not know whether she should abandon Jian Chen to flee for herself, or to stay behind and fight with him. Currently, the great presences from all directions was getting closer and closer. Seeing how the heavenly enchantress still did not leave, Jian Chen could not help but become frantic. He called out, "What are you staying here for? Hurry up and go, before it's too late." The heavenly enchantress looked at Jian Chen, who was currently battling the several saint rulers with mixed emotions. In the end, she gritted her teeth and made her decision, turning around and leaving. She disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Even though her abilities with the zither were extraordinary, she had no chance of victory against several dozen saint rulers and even a saint king. The abilities of saint rulers were also suppressed her. She could not use a movement battle skill like Jian Chen to move about. Once she was surrounded, it would be much more dangerous for her than Jian Chen. Also, the number of saint rulers was not the whole force of the Fantasy Star Ocean. She knew that if the commotion became too great, it would even attract experts from further away. That way, the saint rulers they faced would only increase. Chapter 821, Saint King Living Corpse. After the heavenly enchantress departed, Jian Chen remained where he was, embroiled in an intense battle with the saint rulers. Meanwhile, the presences from the surroundings were currently approaching where he was quickly. Jian Chen kept the saint rulers before him busy all by himself. He moved about and around them using the illusionary flash, stabbing out with the dragon-slaying sword again and again. He constantly dealt terrifying sword wounds to the saint rulers, but these injuries did not affect them at all. They battled for just a few seconds, and 5 of the 7 saint rulers were already diced up by Jian Chen. However, their bodies rebuilt themselves immediately, continuing their great battle against Jian Chen with great boldness. They were completely indestructible. Dragon-slaying sword turned into a black streak of light as Jian Chen lashed out with it. It turned into a great sword-shaped ray of light, completely condensed from chaotic force, and collided with the 7 saint rulers. It directly struck the waists of the 7 people, severing their bodies into 2 portions. The remaining sword chi collided with the rocks behind, immediately producing a powerful boom, sending loose rubble everywhere. Jian Chen had purposely made such a great commotion, to attract the attention of all the living corpses and help make time for the heavenly enchantress's escape. The great activity and vast presence from Jian Chen was like a bright lantern in a dark night. It was so eye-catching. The living corpses from the surroundings all rushed at Jian Chen. All their attention was focused on Jian Chen. They could not feel the existence of the heavenly enchantress at all. Even those that flew over her sensed nothing. Very soon, the dozen or so closer living corpses arrived before Jian Chen. They surrounded Jian Chen and struck out mercilessly. All their methods for attack similar, nothing more than punches and kicks. They had completely forgotten the techniques and skills they had learnt in their former lives. Otherwise, Jian Chen definitely would not have been able to hold off over 20 opponents of the same level with his current strength. Jian Chen was stern. With a stream of blurry figures, he shuffled between the cracks of the attacks from over 20 living corpses. Although he had been surrounded, he moved skillfully and at ease. Currently, there were great uses for the illusionary flash that he had learnt. More and more living corpses carried over from the surroundings. In just a few short seconds, the living corpses surrounding Jian Chen increased from 20-odd saint rulers to over 50. Constantly flickering about, Jian Chen gradually headed for the distance, attracting the group of living corpses in the opposite direction of the heavenly enchantress. Along the way, he made a big commotion, just to attract the living corpses' attention. He could not let them sense the heavenly enchantress. Currently, the purple-dressed heavenly enchantress stood several kilometers away, staring in Jian Chen's direction with an extremely mixed expression. She could clearly hear the noise of intense battle, which then gradually became more distant. The living corpses currently chased Jian Chen, getting further and further away before leaving the region altogether. "I hope you come back alive," the heavenly enchantress murmured gently. Afterwards, she went off quickly into the distance with her zither, gradually disappearing into the darkness. Jian Chen was currently surrounded, and the number of living corpses attacking him had already increased to over 100. Most of them were humans, with a few magical beasts. They all constantly threw punches at Jian Chen as they produced angry, beast-like roars. Jian Chen had already turned into a blur. Even though he was surrounded by over 100 saint ruler corpses, he did not receive many injuries. The illusionary flash was an extremely profound movement battle skill. It may have paled greatly in comparison to the saint ruler's spatial force for traveling, but there were almost no other movement battle skills in the world that could be compared to it for dodging. As a result, the living corpses had not even touched the corner of Jian Chen's clothes even after moving about the 100 living corpses for so long. Jian Chen traveled into the distance with the living corpses. Along the way, all he did was constantly dodge their attacks. He did not attack the corpses. These living corpses were all indestructible. It was virtually impossible for him to attack all the corpses to the point where they could no longer rebuild their bodies with his current strength and amount of chaotic force. Also, the longer the battle lasted, the more living corpses would arrive from the surroundings. It would only make the situation he faced more and more dangerous. Right now, Jian Chen only wanted to shake off these living corpses. He had no intention to fight at all. Bang! 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 Punches from the living corpses were constantly thrown towards the quickly moving Jian Chen, but with no exception, they all missed. Some landed on the blurs created from the illusionary flash, while the other portion would strike the bodies of their companions after passing through the blurs. It would immediately produce muffled sounds of collisions, where the powerful energy directly sent them flying into the distance. Roar! At this very moment, an earth-shaking roar resounded from far away. An aura countless times more powerful than the Saint Ruler living corpses currently approaching Jian Chen quickly. As it approached him, the vast energy it radiated with caused the thick mist in the sky above the fantasy star ocean to churn violently. It was extremely terrifying. A sliver of shock immediately flashed across Jian Chen's eyes. He became extremely stern and growled, "Crap, that must be a Supreme Saint King." Jian Chen did not hesitate at all, immediately shooting off into the distance to flee. Behind him closely followed the 100-odd Saint Ruler living corpses. The Saint King living corpse shot over from the distance at a low altitude with a monstrous aura. It was extremely fast. Even though it was just flying, it was already equivalent to the speed at which Saint Rulers traveled at with spatial force. In just a few seconds, it had arrived above Jian Chen, directly throwing a palm strike at Jian Chen. A terrifying energy whistled towards Jian Chen. Although the strike from the Saint King did not carry any special characteristics, the powerful force from a Saint King was still enough to astound Jian Chen. Jian Chen felt extremely grim, but he did not become perturbed at all. It was no longer his first time facing up against a Saint King, and even though the Saint King living corpse before him had terrifying strength, it was completely different from its former self. This was because it was unable to prevent Jian Chen from dodging using spatial locks, only able to attack blankly with simple moves. Jian Chen pushed the illusionary flash to the utmost limit, immediately turning into a blur and shooting towards one side with an unbelievable speed. The palm full of great, terrifying energy from the Saint King corpse had basically brushed past Jian Chen, collided with the ground. Jian Chen had dodged it under the utmost danger. Bang! Following it was a violent boom, which almost echoed through the entire fantasy star ocean. The palm strike from the living corpse had caused the entire region of Earth to shake violently. Within a radius of several dozen kilometers, the ground cracked, forming huge, spiderweb-like fissures. Meanwhile the violent energy ripples wreaked havoc, expanding in all directions as a shock wave. Jian Chen, being closest to it, was immediately sent flying backwards, struggling to regain control. Even the clothes he wore was ripped to smithereens, revealing the golden silk mail created from the primordial god silk. The disparity between Saint Kings and Saint Rulers was just too great. Not only did the great energy of a mere palm strike from the Saint Ruler corpse send Jian Chen flying off quickly, it even knocked the 100-odd Saint Ruler corpses backwards. Not only did the power of the strike send all the Saint Rulers flying, it even broke through several formations hidden around the area with its great energy ripples as it wreaked havoc. Many complicated and profound drawings appeared in the surroundings, on the cracked ground. Jian Chen flew for several kilometers before finally crashing into the ground in a horrible condition. He immediately climbed up and shot, immediately using the illusionary flash to flee into the distance without paying any attention to his shredded clothes. At this very moment, another powerful energy attacked from behind. Jian Chen did not hesitate at all, immediately pushing the illusionary flash to the limit again. He instantly appeared 20 meters away, leaving behind a blur. With a great boom, the ground began to shake once again, while Jian Chen was sent flying by the violent energy ripples once again. As he flew backwards, Jian Chen quickly regained control, before borrowing the force of the knockback to accelerate into the distance to flee. He knew that as long as he pulled a certain distance from the living corpses and then carefully concealed his presence, it would be possible for him to hide from them. However, in the end, things did not go as Jian Chen wished. With an ear-piercing whistle, the Saint King corpse had already caught up to Jian Chen from behind with a speed several times faster, arriving before Jian Chen and blocking his path in the blink of an eye. It hurled another fist full of power, directly towards Jian Chen. Although the punch contained no special abilities, its great power caused the surrounding space to distort violently. Jian Chen's expression changed greatly. He was currently mid-air with nothing around him that he could borrow. He was unable to use the advantage of the illusory flash perfectly. He had also devoted all his strength into fleeing, currently burnt out. He no longer had the power to dodge the punch rushing over. Jian Chen gritted his teeth and chaotic force immediately filled his body. He pushed the power of the chaotic body to the limit, while he used the dragon-slaying sword in his right hand to stab the Saint King's fist with lightning speed. The dragon-slaying sword stabbed deeply into the Saint King's fist with a destructive aura of chaotic force, before skewering the living corpse's entire right arm. The sharp point of the sword had directly reappeared from around the corpse's shoulder. At the same time, the corpse's fish had also struck Jian Chen's chest. The golden silk mail on Jian Chen immediately shone with a layer of hazy golden light to block the fist. Although the silk mail could block attacks from saint rulers, it was still unable to do anything against a strike from a Saint King. The golden light was suppressed by the first very quickly, and the fist landed heavily on Jian Chen's chest. Spurt. Jian Chen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and his face instantly became sheet white. A strike from a Saint King was just too powerful. Even after being weakened by the silk mail, it was not something Jian Chen's chaotic body could currently withstand. Chapter 822, The Forbidden Air. 10 meters above Jian Chen shot backwards like a cannonball, flying higher and higher. Blood spurted wildly from his mouth. He was already heavily injured. Very soon, Jian Chen passed the 10-meter threshold in the sky. The surrounding space began to twist violently as soon as that happened. Jian Chen felt a violent pain throughout his entire body as he was in the center of all of it, as if he was being cut at by countless sharp blades. Jian Chen immediately remembered the heavenly enchantress's warning, where he definitely could not fly above 10 meters in the sky. The altitude at which the Saint Ruler living corpses flew at appeared in his mind at the same time. They actually all hovered rather close to the ground, never surpassing the 10-meter threshold. Oh no, there's danger. Shocked, he ignored his injuries and used all his strength to regain control of his motion. Afterwards, he used the illusionary flash and became a blur immediately, lowering himself beneath the threshold. Just as Jian Chen descended, the space 10 meters in the sky shattered instantly. It turned into a region of darkness, crisscrossed with cracks in the space. They were like pitch-black, sharp blades, constantly chopping at something. He stared blankly at the space in the sky as some residue blood hung from the corner of his mouth. His eyes began to flicker as he thought up of something. A Saint Ruler living corpse flew over from the distance during that moment, directly hurling a fist towards Jian Chen. A gleam of light flashed across Jian Chen's eyes, as if he had thought of an idea. He dodged the punch with a slight movement and when he reappeared, he was already behind the living corpse. He grabbed the Saint Ruler directly with his arms and tossed him upwards towards the 10-meter threshold with some force. Jian Chen possessed the chaotic body, so his physical strength was extremely great. With just that, the living corpse was sent 100 meters up and the space surrounding immediately began to distort violently. The space there quickly darkened, and countless pitch-black cracks crisscrossed it, like sharp blades. They passed through the corpse, dicing it into a million pieces. Jian Chen watched on closely at what was going on in the sky. All he found was that the diced corpse did not fall back down, it had been sucked away by those spatial cracks instead. It was gone. A gleam of light immediately exploded in Jian Chen's eyes as he realized it, a method to completely finish off these corpses. Their indestructibility had always his most troublesome problem, but now, he had finally found a method to deal with it. Ahead, the only Saint King corpse present rushed towards Jian Chen once again, striking out with its palm and sending a surge of energy towards Jian Chen. Jian Chen was heavily wounded, but this also presented the power of his chaotic body perfectly. Not only did it prevent his injuries from aggravating, they were quickly healing. They did not affect him very much. Jian Chen had a deep understanding of the Saint King corpse's strength. He was unwilling to even come close with the Saint King corpse. He dodged its attack with all his strength. Jian Chen was unwilling to take it head-on. But to Jian Chen's rejoice, the living corpses had no intelligence and could not use battle techniques despite their great strength. Otherwise, even just a 7th heavenly layer Saint Ruler would probably be enough to incapacitate his abilities to dodge, let alone a Saint King. They would only need to freeze the space around him, and that alone would be enough to immobilize him completely. The surrounding Saint Ruler corpses surrounded him once again. This time, Jian Chen put the dragon-slaying sword away, moving through the Saint Rulers as he dodged the Saint King's attacks. Whenever he had the chance, he would mercilessly knock those Saint Ruler corpses high into the sky. Bang! 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 The sound of colliding flesh constantly rang out. As Jian Chen moved about between over 100 Saint Rulers, he constantly threw his fists, knocking Saint Rulers into the air one by one. They would be diced into countless pieces by the crisscrossing spatial cracks in the end, and their body parts would be sucked away to somewhere unknown. The living corpses that attacked Jian Chen decreased quickly as they were shredded into countless pieces in the sky one after another. Very soon, the number dropped from over 100 to the 50s. During that time, a few Saint Ruler corpses had also flown over due to the commotion. However, Jian Chen no longer feared them now that he had already found a way to deal with these Saint Ruler corpses. What really made him fearful was the powerful Saint King corpse. The Saint King constantly rained Jian Chen with attacks, without paying attention to those nearby. It obliterated many Saint Ruler corpses, which then rebuilt their bodies. They were indestructible, even to the Saint King corpse. Jian Chen could only dodge against the fierce attacks of the Saint King. He devoted all of his efforts to dealing with the Saint Ruler corpses. The battle lasted for an entire hour. All of the 100-odd corpses were finally knocked into the sky by Jian Chen, dying to the spatial cracks. Only the Saint King corpse was left. During the hour of tough battle, Jian Chen consumed an extremely great amount of energy. He had used chaotic force to cast the illusionary flash the whole time. He did not pause at all. It caused the already tiny chaotic Niden to shrink even more, now the size of a mung bean. Lesser and lesser chaotic force remained. Jian Chen stared at the remaining corpse and thought, I need to find a way to deal with it. Not only will I lose my defense from the chaotic force if I drag it out and expend all of my chaotic force, I'll lose the source of my power. I won't even be able to use the illusionary flash. Jian Chen dodged the Saint King corpse's attack, appearing beside it like a ghost with a streak of blurs. He directly threw a punch at the corpse's crotch, attempting to knock it 10 meters into the air. Bang! The Saint King immediately trembled violently following a muffled sound. However, it was not sent high up into the air like the Saint Ruler corpses, rising up only by half a meter. On the other hand, the corpse had already struck out with its palm, striking Jian Chen's left shoulder with lightning speed. Crack! With a clear bone-breaking sound, Jian Chen's left shoulder turned to mush. He lost all feeling in his left arm. Jian Chen could not help but grunt from the violent pain, while pea-sized droplets of perspiration had covered his forehead. However, he had no intentions of retreating. He appeared behind the Saint King as he endured the great pain, hurling another fist into the Saint King's crotch just like before, causing it to rise up by half a meter again. The Saint King corpse possessed no intelligence, it had no idea what Jian Chen was trying to do. The only thing in his mind was to exterminate all foreign entities. There was nothing else beside that. It immediately turned around, throwing another palm strike at Jian Chen just like before. Jian Chen had anticipated it. Just as the Saint King corpse raised its arm, he arrived before it with a flash once again, throwing another punch into the same region and making it rise up by another half a meter. This was repeated several times, where he had finally knocked the corpse past the 10-meter threshold after around a dozen punches. The originally calm space immediately began to twist violently, while the pitch-black spatial cracks appeared once again. With their crisscrossing, they obliterate the Saint King's head. The corpse felt nothing as it lost its head, continuing like before to constantly attack Jian Chen. Jian Chen threw another punch at the Saint King's crotch, sending more than half of its body past the threshold. Instantly, the upper torso of the corpse turned to smithereens from the spatial cracks. It had even lost its arms, only leaving behind its waist and its two legs. A gleam of bright light flashed violently across Jian Chen's eyes as victory entered his eyes. He threw one more punch without taking a breath, completely knocking the remaining corpse beyond the threshold. The remaining legs of the Saint King corpse also entered the threshold. Immediately, the pitch-black cracks appeared once again, dicing the Saint King's legs into pieces like sharp blades before sucking it all into the spatial cracks. Over 100 Saint Ruler corpse and a Saint King corpse had finally been sent to their end in the forbidden air by Jian Chen's efforts. Jian Chen stared at the pitch-black, forbidden region in the sky in exhaustion and produced a long sigh. He slowly descended to the ground soon afterwards, laying down powerlessly, panting. Jian Chen was also extremely tired after battling for so long. It had already been a long time since he was this tired. The only reason why I survived that group attack of corpse was all because I relied on the illusionary flash. It saved my life. Looks like I need to devote some more time into researching this movement battle skill. I can only rely on the illusionary flash to keep myself alive in case I ever enter another odd area where Saint Ruler abilities are suppressed, Jian Chen thought. He had gained a proper understanding for the power of the illusionary flash, treating the disused movement battle skill importantly once again. Jian Chen rested for a while on the ground before standing up again. He concealed any presences of him and carefully left the region. He knew that he might have already attracted all the Saint Ruler corpses in the region, but the battle was just too intense. He still did not want to risk staying there for too long, fearing that there would be many Saint Ruler corpses heading over there at this very instance. The night of the Fantasy Star Ocean was different to outside. Jian Chen was already powerful enough to completely see in the dark outside, yet it was different in the Fantasy Star Ocean. The limits of his vision was only a few hundred meters away, and it was all blurry and unclear. Jian Chen did not dare to walk around blindly as a result. He stopped after traveling just 10 kilometers, deciding to continue on his way during the daytime. That way, he would be able to detect the many unknown dangers beforehand. Jian Chen sat down on the ground and crossed his legs. He circulating chaotic force through the body to make his wounds heal faster. Staying like that for a whole 2 hours, he finally recovered completely. If it were other Saint Rulers, or even Saint Kings, it would have been impossible for them to make a complete recovery in such a short amount of time from wounds as heavy as Jian Chen's. They would need at least a couple of days. If there were Saint Rulers who suffered a strike from a Saint King, the time needed would be even longer. It would take at least a dozen or so days, or even half a month, maybe even years or decades. Only Jian Chen's chaotic body possessed such a great recovery rate, exceeding that of Radiant Saint Force. Chapter 823, Refining Monster Cores. Fully recovering from his injuries, Jian Chen pulled out a set of clean clothes from his space ring and put them on. He did not go anywhere, sitting back down on the ground and slowly closed his eyes. He waited silently for dawn, as he always remained vigilant of any activity in the surroundings. Originally, he wanted to return and rendezvous with the heavenly enchantress. But traveling in the night in the Fantasy Star Ocean truly was a bad idea, and the heavenly enchantress probably left the region before long ago. It would be extremely difficult to search for her with a limited range of only a few hundred meters. I wonder if I can absorb some energy from the monster cores and recover some chaotic force here. Jian Chen thought. Immediately, he pulled out 2 Class 6 monster cores from his space ring and held them each in one hand. He awakened the sword spirits from their slumber in his mind at the same time, to get them to help out on the side as he refined the monster cores into chaotic force. The sword spirits discovered the difference of the surroundings as soon as they were awakened. Both of them appeared outside simultaneously and stared around the surroundings in shock. Light in their eyes flickered uneasily. Ziying, Qingsuo, please help me refine chaotic force. Jian Chen said to the 2 of them. They did not seem to hear what Jian Chen said, constantly examining the surroundings as doubt flickered through their eyes. Jian Chen raised his head doubtfully as he did not get a reply, to look at the sword spirits above him. He could not help but feel slightly perturbed after seeing their expressions. He asked, Ziying, Qingsuo, perhaps you've discovered something? Jian Chen did not get a reply instantly. Only after a solid moment did Ziying's voice appear in his head, Master, where is this place? This is the Fantasy Star Ocean. Jian Chen completely explained all he knew to the sword spirits. Slivers of doubt appeared on both their faces after listening to Jian Chen's explanation. Ziying then looked towards Qingsuo and asked, Ziying, do you feel it too? Qingsuo nodded, I can vaguely feel a sliver of extremely familiar energy. I feel it too, but it's very faint, so I'm not certain just what power it is. Ziying said gruffly. Listening to their conversation, Jian Chen also experienced a wave of doubt. He asked out of curiosity, Ziying, Qingsuo, what energy do you feel? Perhaps there's something you two are familiar with in the Fantasy Star Ocean? Master, the energy is extremely thin. We only sense a sliver of familiarity, so we can't confirm just what it is. Ziying looked at the sky as he spoke. This region of space is filled with an odd energy, as if it's formed its own domain. It greatly differs from outside and has already created its own laws. Created its own laws. Jian Chen suddenly understood something. No wonder his Saint Ruler abilities were suppressed here and his sensory perceptions were lowered. The laws of this region of space greatly differed from outside. It had already become its own, independent domain. Master, you need to be extra careful here. I sense several powerful presences. They're not things that you can handle. Qingsuo warned with concern, before assisting Jian Chen to refine chaotic energy after crossing her legs above Jian Chen. The 2 Class 6 monster cores were refined by the sword spirits very quickly, turning into a tiny, almost a negligible amount of chaotic force which entered Jian Chen. Jian Chen knew that a single strand of chaotic force required vast amounts of energy to be refined. The energy in the 2 Class 6 monster cores was not even enough to refine a tenth of a strand. Class 6 monster cores might have only been 1 class below Class 7, but the disparity of purity was worlds apart. Jian Chen absorbed the small sliver of chaotic force refined from the Class 6 monster cores. Afterwards, a large pile of monster cores immediately appeared before him with a wave of his hand. Most of them were Class 5, but there were also plenty of Class 6 monster cores. These monster cores were all obtained from the space rings of those he had killed. Included inside was the collections of the sect of Dragon and Tiger Saint Ruler and the 2 ancestors of the Hongfu clan. He had given a lot of them to the Flame Mercenaries and his group of companions before he left, but there were still plenty of high-class monster cores left. Ziying, Qingsuo, refine all these monster cores, said Jian Chen. He could not afford to care for the consumption of monster cores right now. Recovering his chaotic force was crucial. Otherwise, he would not even have the ability to protect himself in the Fantasy Star Ocean, much less enter its depths for stardust and dragon saliva. Ziying glanced at the pile of monster cores in front of Jian Chen. The energies in these monster cores may not be as much as ruler armaments, but there's a large quantity. We should be able to produce a few strands if we refine all of them. Ziying waved his hand as he spoke, causing all the monster cores to levitate. He began the refining process. Jian Chen did not just sit around. He assisted the sword spirits in refining the energy of the monster cores, converting the chaotic force into his own energy at the same time through the secret technique recorded in the Azulite Sword Law. This persisted for a large majority of the night. The great pile of monster cores was finally all refined, but it had only produced 12 strands of chaotic force despite so many refined. All it did was increase the chaotic Niden to the size of a soybean. Looks like I'd need extremely vast amounts of energy if I want to turn the chaotic Niden back to the size it was before. Even if I add in all the monster cores I have on me, it's far from enough, thought Jian Chen. Jian Chen frowned in worry. Right now, his chaotic force was only on the first layer, yet it was already so hard to increase. Wouldn't recovering the loss of chaotic force become even more difficult when he reached the second layer or even the third layer, and layers beyond that? Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. He murmured softly, "Energy, energy, I need vast quantities of energy. It's just a pity that the energy of the world here is thick but the purity is just horrible. If I want to replenish it through absorbing energy of the world, it'll take even longer. I don't have that much time to wait around." Jian Chen sighed gently. Ever since he obtained the chaotic body, he was always troubled with the need of huge quantities of energy. Perfect things did not exist in the world. If there were benefits, there would also be drawbacks. The strength of chaotic force was undisputable, but training the chaotic body required far more energy than what normal cultivators needed. That was the only disadvantage of the chaotic body. Suddenly, Jian Chen's expression changed. He stood up from the ground, narrowing his eyes at distance. Ziying and Qing Sua also looked towards the distance together. Caution flickered in their eyes as they said, "Master, there's people coming. You can't stay here for long." Several powerful presences appeared far away as soon as they finished what they said, quickly approaching the area. "Ziying, Qing Sua, you two return first. I'll leave this place immediately." Jian Chen growled. He carefully hid his presence without any hesitation and walked off silently. He disappeared into the dark night in the blink of an eye. Not long afterwards, several Saint Ruler living corpses flew over from the distance. They all stopped where Jian Chen was, mindlessly strolling around and did not disperse even after a very long time. Jian Chen's figure appeared silently several hundred meters away. He stared closely at the Saint Ruler corpses and thought, "Looks like they've been attracted by the energy released when I was refining the chaotic force." Jian Chen disappeared into the dark night once again with a slight movement, silently moving off into the distance. Visibility quickly recovered as the darkness of the Fantasy Star Ocean receded in the morning of the next day. Slowly, the island became fully visible once again. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes in his seated position on a flat meadow in the Fantasy Star Ocean. He had spent the latter half of the night there and the long-awaited dawn had finally come. Jian Chen stood up and looked around. His vision was extremely clear again without the concealment of the night. He could clearly see over 10 kilometers away in the open area. He did not stay here much longer, following the signs of battle from the night before to continue on his way towards the depths of the Fantasy Star Ocean. He hoped he could find the heavenly enchantress who he had been separated from. Only by traveling together could they break free of any Saint Ruler killing formations if they became entrapped. Jian Chen hurried on his way, but his vigilance did not decrease by the slightest. He would look around for any signs or hidden traps from time to time. Along the way, Jian Chen found many living corpses wandering about mindlessly. They were all heaven saint master or saint rulers, but with no exception, Jian Chen avoided all of them from afar, without even coming within a 1,000-meter radius. Jian Chen was unsure whether he would remain undiscovered if he became so close. 4 hours later, Jian Chen arrived at a mountain range. The forest on and around the mountain was slightly misty, covering a large portion of it. He paid attention to his surroundings as he walked, arriving at the location where he had been separated from the heavenly enchantress very soon. Afterwards, he continued inwards. An hour later, Jian Chen was amidst the mountain range. This was the general region of the Fantasy Star Ocean, sandwiched between the outskirts and the center. Only by passing through here could he directly arrive at the depths. He paid attention to the steps nearby as Jian Chen carefully made his way through the forest. He murmured, 100,000-year dragon saliva can only be found in the depths. Then where is the stardust I am looking for? Suddenly, Jian Chen paused. He looked towards the boulder that was as tall as a man not too far away. On the boulder grew a plant half a meter long, and from the stalk, there were 2 leaves and a pink-colored flower. That's a morning sunflower, an extremely rare heavenly resource on the continent, Jian Chen immediately exclaimed after seeing the flower. He was overjoyed. He hurried up to the plant to carefully examine it. This morning sunflower seems to have grown for tens of thousands of years here. It's a 10,000-year heavenly resource. The Fantasy Star Ocean is one of the most dangerous regions on the Tianyuan continent, so rarely do any people come here. There must be quite a few heavenly resources, murmured Jian Chen. Afterwards, he immediately connected with the artifact spirit, getting him to let out the white tiger. The white tiger was warned beforehand by Jian Chen, so it remained extremely calm after leaving the artifact space. It also seemed to feel that the Fantasy Star Ocean was different, constantly glancing around with eyes filled with a rare sternness. Chapter 824, Searching for Heavenly Resources. Jian Chen lifted the white tiger up the boulder and laughed gently. Xiao Bai, don't you love eating heavenly resources? This morning sunflower is a 10,000-year heavenly resource. It should be able to make your strength increase by quite a bit. The white tiger sniffed it with its nose, quickly becoming entranced by the morning sunflower. It immediately cried out joyfully and arrived before the flower with a leap, opening its mouth and devouring the flower. It began to chew happily. Ever since the white tiger reached Class 6, the effects of 1,000-year heavenly resources became negligible. Only 10,000-year heavenly resources had any major effects to it. Jian Chen could not help but smile as he watched the white tiger wolf down the flower. He leapt onto the huge rock, carefully protecting the remaining stalk of the morning sunflower. He did not dig it up along with its roots. Morning sunflowers were extremely rare, unlike other ordinary heavenly resources. Jian Chen did not want to completely destroy this morning sunflower plant. As long as the stalk remained, there were possibilities for it to regrow in the future. Eating the morning sunflower, the white tiger produced a crisp, satisfied burp, before nimbly climbing onto Jian Chen's shoulder. Its eyes slowly closed, about to fall asleep to digest the medicinal effects of the morning sunflower. Jian Chen quickly grabbed the white tiger and shook its head. Xiao Bai, it's not the time to fall asleep. There's definitely large quantities of 10,000-year heavenly resources in the Fantasy Star Ocean, or even be 100,000-year ones. You can't miss the chance to search through a blessed land like this. Do what you're best at, go find some heavenly resources. As long as there's large quantities of heavenly resources, I believe you'll reach Class 7 very quickly. The white tiger had gained intelligence long ago. It could not speak, but it could already understand the human language. Its 2 small eyes immediately lit up with interest from what Jian Chen had said, and its sleepiness immediately disappeared. It became overflowing with energy once again, immediately standing up on Jian Chen's shoulder and constantly sniffing at the air with its nose. Gradually, the white tiger's small eyes shone brighter and brighter, before becoming extremely excited. Afterwards, it leapt off Jian Chen's shoulder, shooting off into the distance as a white blur and disappearing into the forest in the blink of an eye. Jian Chen's expression changed greatly. He cried out, "Xiao Bai, come back. It's dangerous here. You can't just run around." Jian Chen became extremely worried as he watched the white tiger disappear from his sights. He had a deep understanding just how terrifying the Fantasy Star Ocean was. Not only were there vast numbers of Saint Ruler living corpses, there were also plenty of undetectable formations hidden about. Even though Xiao Bai was the winged tiger god, it was still a Class 6 magical beast in the end. Jian Chen no longer paid any more attention to anything else due to his concern for Xiao Bai's safety. He used the illusionary flash, turning into a blur to chase in the direction the white tiger had disappeared off to. The scenery around him suddenly began to change greatly just after traveling a few kilometers. The world suddenly darkened. He discovered that he had strangely arrived at a vast starry sky. Countless stars filled every inch of the space, so densely packed that it was innumerable. He had no sense for direction at all in the vast starry sky. It was the same everywhere, without any differences. Jian Chen discovered that he was completely and utterly lost when he had arrived here, actually unable to tell which direction was north or south, east or west. He could not even tell which way was up or down, left or right. This is an illusionary formation," Jian Chen murmured with a soft voice as he became stern. He knew that the formation this time was much more powerful and profound. It had already conjured starry sky as soon as it appeared. Other ordinary formations could not be compared to this. This'll be troublesome. I'm completely disoriented, so I probably can't walk out of it. Just how am I supposed to break out of this illusion? It must have been cast down by a great person from the ancient dragon clan. Looking at the handiwork, I might not be able to forcefully break through it with my current strength, Jian Chen mumbled. He felt extremely anxious as he worried about the white tiger running about in the Fantasy Star Ocean. Suddenly, Jian Chen heard a low growl. A sliver of joy immediately appeared on Jian Chen's face and he cried out, "Xiao Bai." A white blur appeared in front of Jian Chen. It was Xiao Bai who had returned, suddenly appearing in the formation. Its small body immediately became 3 meters long and it dove directly between Jian Chen's legs. It forced Jian Chen onto its back, before bounding away. Jian Chen only felt the wild whistling of wind, and soon afterwards, his vision suddenly brightened. He had already left the illusion of the starry sky, returning to the Fantasy Star Ocean once again. Around him stood the familiar mountains and hills. Having expanded in size, the white tiger leapt through the forest nimbly as Jian Chen sat on its back. It advanced through the depths of the mountains at an extremely great speed and soon enough, it stopped before a small, 3-meter-tall tree. The tree was an extremely lush, and through the dense thicket were a few, fist-sized red fruits, slightly obscured by the leaves. The white tiger stared at the red fruits. A slavering expression appeared in his eyes, extremely excited. Jian Chen focused on the red fruits. He did not exactly what they were, but he knew that they were definitely some unknown heavenly resource from the way Xiao Bai behaved. Jian Chen climbed off the white tiger, slowly making his way up to the tree to pick the fruits. The white tiger immediately blocked Jian Chen. It waved its front paws without any signs of stopping, as if it was trying to tell Jian Chen something. Confusion appeared on Jian Chen's face, but he understood very quickly. He said, "Xiao Bai, are you saying that these heavenly resources need to be stored in jade?" The white tiger immediately nodded its head. Jian Chen suddenly understood something. There were myriad varieties of heavenly resources on the Tianyuan continent, and some of them could be picked directly without any particular methods of storage. Their medicinal effects would not dissipate. However, There were also a few special heavenly resources that required to be stored in jade in order to prevent the dissipation of its medicinal effects to allow for longer storage. The unknown fruits here were clearly the latter, needing to be stored in a jade box to seal in their medicinal effects. Jian Chen immediately began to search through his space ring. Very soon, he found a square jade box with a length of 30 centimeters, carefully placing the red fruits from the tree into it. He knew that most heavenly resources that required to be stored in jade were fragile and could not be played around with. Otherwise, it would be equivalent to ruining the heavenly resource. A smile appeared on Jian Chen's face as he looked at the 9 fruits in the box. He could feel the extraordinarily great medicinal effects of the fruits. They were at least 10,000 years old, or even several tens of thousands years old. These fruits should be able to make the white tiger's strength increase by quite a lot. Jian Chen mumbled to himself, before gently closing the jade box. He put it away into his space ring as the white tiger stared at it with a drooling gaze. Jian Chen smiled as he saw how the white tiger behaved. He rubbed its big head and said, "Xiao Bai, these belong to you anyway. You can't keep feasting on them now. Once you fall asleep, wouldn't it just be wasting an opportunity at so many other heavenly resources? Alright, let's hurry up and continue the search for more." The Fantasy Star Ocean may be one of the most dangerous regions of the Tianyuan continent, but doesn't that mean it's a land of treasure too? We have to take this opportunity to collect a few aged heavenly resources. The white tiger's eyes began to shine with interest once again. It immediately slipped between Jian Chen's legs again and left the area, leaping nimbly through the tree. It traveled extremely quickly. "Xiao Bai, slow down. Don't make too great of a disturbance and disturb those living corpses." Jian Chen immediately warned as he saw how the white tiger traveled through the Fantasy Star Ocean brazenly. But his warning was already too late. Many Saint Ruler corpses immediately detected the white tiger above their heads as it leapt over a large mound. They produced angered roars as they began chasing the white tiger. "It'll be troublesome now. I need to finish them off as fast as I can." Jian Chen's mood became gloomy. The dragon-slaying sword immediately appeared in his hand, ready to leave the white tiger's back to handle the corpses pursuing them closely. However, Xiao Bai produced a great roar at that moment before he could leave. It shook the sky, resounding across almost half of the Fantasy Star Ocean, echoing constantly between the mountains. Several wild beast-like roars immediately arose up in response as soon as the white tiger's roar ended from the surroundings. Several dozen powerful presences appeared immediately, quickly approaching the area. Jian Chen's complexion immediately became extremely ugly. He had never thought that Xiao Bai would be so mischievous. Saint Ruler living corpses were extremely hard to deal with, he could not even avoid them when he wanted to, yet the white tiger had purposely attracted them over. This was essentially dooming themselves. "Xiao Bai, I should have never let you out." Jian Chen spoke through gritted teeth. He had already entered the general region of the Fantasy Star Ocean, so the chances of encountering Saint King corpses here were much greater than in the outskirts. "Mrrm," the white tiger immediately purred after feeling the anger in Jian Chen's words. Its call was filled with a feeling of being wronged. However, it sped up instead. The roars from the surroundings grew closer and closer. Jian Chen could already see the figures of a dozen or so living corpses, currently quickly approaching the white tiger. Jian Chen became extremely grim. He immediately filled every corner of his body with chaotic force, making preparations for battle. The surroundings around Jian Chen suddenly changed greatly. The lush mountains and forest disappeared and so did the figures of the living corpses. Jian Chen and the white tiger had arrived at a blood-red world, where an edgeless sea of blood laid beneath their feet. It constantly bubbled like boiling water, but there was not heat at all. Formation, it's another formation. Jian Chen immediately connected it to the countless formations in the Fantasy Star Ocean after seeing this. The sea of blood below began to surge suddenly, like a roaring wave. A big cluster of blood rose from it, slowly forming a huge dragon head. Roar! The dragon head, completely made from blood, roared at the sky. Powerful sound waves rocked through the entire world of blood, and shortly afterwards, the head rose from the blood towards the sky, revealing a 300-meter-long blood dragon. A few figures flickered in the surroundings at the same time. The Saint Ruler corpses pursuing Jian Chen had also entered the formation. They directly charged for Jian Chen, paying no heed to the blood dragon. Chapter 825, Blood of the War God Roar. The 300-meter-long blood dragon produced an roar that shook the sea of blood. Opening its mouth, scorching hot dragon breath shot out, surging directly for the corpses. The blood dragon did not seem to exist to the living corpses. All they had in sight was Jian Chen and the white tiger. They did not avoid the dragon breath at all, only wanting to reach Jian Chen and the white tiger. The enormous dragon breath directly engulfed over 10 of them. It ate away a large portion of the corpses' bodies as Jian Chen watched on in shock. However, their indestructible bodies came into play soon afterwards. They returned to how they were before, continuing their charge at Jian Chen and the white tiger. The white tiger seemed to know the strength of the Saint Ruler corpses as well. It quickly ran over the sea of blood with Jian Chen on its back, pulling far away from the corpses. The blood dragon seemed to feel seriously challenged after seeing how its dragon breath did absolutely nothing to the corpses. It roared angrily and swung its front claws at the living corpses. The blood dragon was extremely powerful. The Saint Ruler corpses were like tofu before the dragon's claws, directly ripped in half. The blood dragon did not stop with just that. It suddenly turned its great head towards the white tiger and Jian Chen, raising its claw once again and swinging it as a blood-red blur at them. The tiger's fur suddenly stood up. Its small eyes became unprecedentedly grim and it produced a low growl. It disappeared from the sea of blood with a leap, which led to the claw sweeping through thin air. Just as the white tiger disappeared, another 20-odd Saint Ruler corpses appeared within the sea of blood. Their arrival immediately drew the blood dragon's attention. Its claws swept out once again, towards the living corpses with a roar. The white tiger departed from the sea of blood with Jian Chen, appearing among the mountains once again. The formation did not seem to ensnare the tiger. Jian Chen stared at the white tiger uneasily. An unbelievable thought appeared in his head as he connected it to what had happened in the formation of starry skies. Perhaps the formations of the fantasy star ocean had no effect on the white tiger at all? Beast-like roars constantly resounded in the surroundings. Several dozen Saint Rulers had already appeared, all charging towards them. A vast presence that completely exceeded that of Saint Ruler corpses appeared far away at this moment. It shot towards them several times faster than the Saint Ruler corpses. Jian Chen immediately became stern. He cried out, "Crap, that's the presence of a Saint King." Another vast presence appeared on the other side as soon as he finished with what he was saying, it too approaching Jian Chen rapidly. 2 Saint Kings have actually come. Jian Chen's face paled slightly. This was not the end. Up ahead appeared another abnormally vast presence. It was actually another Saint King. 3 Saint Kings. Jian Chen exclaimed. His face had become completely drained of blood. He would still be able to dodge and keep it busy if it was just a single Saint King, or even knock it beyond the 10-meter threshold for it to be ripped to pieces by the spatial cracks, but he probably even struggled to escape against 3 Saint Kings. After all, they did fly much faster than he could travel with the illusionary flash. Roar! Not only did the appearance of the 3 Saint King corpses fail to frighten the white tiger even roared at the sky. The wings on the tiger's back suddenly unfurled, and its speed immediately exploded. It turned into a white blur, flying off into the distance with an unbelievable velocity, on par to the Saint King corpses. Jian Chen pressed his body against the white tiger's back. He had reached a vague understanding regarding some matters. Since Xiao Bai was bold enough to attract all those living corpses, it definitely would have a method to deal with them. He placed all his hopes onto the white tiger. The white tiger quickly shot through the mountains and forests, triggering formation after formation. Jian Chen's surroundings constantly alternated between illusions and reality, but the white tiger remained unaffected. Not only did they fail to stop the white tiger's advance, it passed through them with great ease. Behind them, the 3 Saint King corpses remained close, pursuing them and unwilling to let them escape. They all flew just below the 10-meter threshold. Suddenly, the white tiger's speed began to decrease, which immediately allowed the 3 Saint Kings to pull up closer. The nearby space suddenly began to twist and the 3 Saint King corpses were only 1,000 meters from them, changing greatly once again in the blink of an eye. It was a bleak wasteland, completely barren of any greenery. It stretched as far as the eye could see. A towering battle intent suddenly appeared far away, so powerful that it was far beyond Jian Chen's reckoning. It was filled with a condescending aura, as if nothing in the world seemed significant to it, where he was the overlord of the world. Bang! 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 Suddenly, booms began to resound from afar. The land trembled rhythmically. Jian Chen paled as he heard the sounds. Every boom coincided with his heartbeat. It seemed mysteriously connected, causing his heart to ache painfully every time it sounded out, like someone grinding their foot on his heart. His heart felt like it was going to explode. Jian Chen clenched his chest in some pain. He had already become pale white, while his forehead was already wet with a layer of sweat droplets. He was astounded. Just what is this formation? It's so terrifying. Just the sounds from it is enough to suck away my ability for battle. A golden figure slowly appeared in the distance near the horizon. He walked over slowly, step by step, causing the ground to shake violently every time his foot fell. It seemed to be like stepping on Jian Chen's heart as well, causing his pain to become more intense. The figure seemed to advance slowly, but the few steps he took covered great distances, appearing several hundred meters from Jian Chen. He was a person completely clad in golden armor, only a pair of eyes burning with surging battle intent could be seen. He was extremely burly, 3 meters in height, wide and stocky. He stood there like a hill and on his shoulder carried a giant, 4-meter-long axe. The axe was completely golden in color, as if it was forged out of pure gold, shining with a golden light. Jian Chen became even paler after seeing the figure. For the first time ever, he had lost all courage for battle in front of the golden giant. The man's battle intent seemed to be able to destroy worlds, just his aura had collapsed Jian Chen's last psychological line of defense. Jian Chen had never experienced this feeling where an opponent was just too powerful, not even when he faced up against Saint Kings. Who's this person? Is he a Saint Emperor of the Dragon Clan? Jian Chen's emotions tossed and turned. The white tiger seemed to remain unaffected. It stared at the golden giant with a weird gaze, currently stunned. Another 3 figures appeared in the bleak wasteland at this moment. The Saint King corpses had also entered the formation in pursuit of Jian Chen. They charged towards Jian Chen as soon as they appeared. At the same time, the golden giant moved. He slowly raised the golden axe from his shoulder, and a heavy voice boomed in the surroundings, "Death to those who dare intrude the land of Ergens." The huge, golden axe was raised high up and a devastating battle intent immediately exploded from the person's body. The entire region began to seem so weak, so fragile before the man's axe. Simultaneously, time seemed to completely stop. Only the axe in the man's hand moved. In this instance, the 3 Saint Kings as well as Jian Chen all felt that they had lost control of their bodies. They could only watch on blankly as the dazzling golden axe descended. Swish! The white tiger did not hesitate. It immediately leapt into the distance with the frozen Jian Chen on his back, disappearing from the empty wasteland. The white tiger was unaffected by the frozen time in the region. Jian Chen finally regained control of his body after he left the formation space. His forehead was littered with soybean-sized droplets of sweat, while his heart tossed and turned. He was extremely perturbed. Ergens. Is that golden giant the war god of the 100 races, Ergens? The heavy voice boomed through Jian Chen's head again and again. His entire body began to tremble slightly. The war god of the 100 races, Ergens, was an existence that surpassed Saint Emperor. He was a godlike figure. Jian Chen immediately turned around to look back. All he saw was the 3 Saint King corpses standing blankly several hundred meters away. Shortly afterwards, they turned into dust and disintegrated. They showed no signs of reforming even after a lengthy time. A droplet of golden blood floated nearby that glowed slightly, 3 meters above the ground. Perhaps that's the blood of the war god? Was his body from before transformed from the blood? A thought appeared in Jian Chen's mind as he stared at the golden droplet of blood. He could not help but imagine a scene from the ancient times at the same time. In the ancient times, the 100 races and the magical beasts went to war with one another. The war god of the 100 races, Ergens, killed his way into Dragon Island, angering the ancient winged tiger god who then slaughtered him. This droplet of blood was left behind from that age. Chapter 826, Absolute Killing Formation. 10,000 dragons through the drop of golden blood. Jian Chen immediately began to imagine what had happened in the ancient times. However, this was just his imagination. Jian Chen was almost certain that this drop of blood belonged to the ancient war god, Ergens. However, he was unsure if Ergens had left this drop of blood here willingly. Maybe the blood was obtained using a different method by the experts of the Dragon Clan, and then using a special method, they refined it into a formation which possessed some might of the war god. Just a droplet of blood is already so powerful. It can easily kill off Saint King corpses. This war god of the 100 races really does have terrifying strength. No wonder he's someone who surpassed Saint Emperor. Jian Chen thought as he stared at the golden blood on the white tiger's back that was growing further and further away. Suddenly, Jian Chen seemed to think of something. His eyes narrowed abruptly and staring fixedly at the blood, a powerful gleam of light immediately exploded from his eyes. Golden blood. It's golden blood. Ergens's blood is actually golden. Tai Ta's blood is golden too. Jian Chen's heart began to beat heavily. A terrifying notion appeared in his mind. He stared deeply at the golden blood that gradually disappeared into the distance. He exclaimed, "Xiao Bai, remember this place. You never know, we might come back here in the future." As it ran, the white tiger looked back and glanced at where the blood was. It snarled, as if it was replying to Jian Chen. Next, the white tiger ran about in the Fantasy Star Ocean, creating a great commotion and attracting the corpses from all around. It then led all the corpses to be sucked up by formations, using the powerful formations in the Fantasy Star Ocean to trap them. The white tiger would immediately bring Saint King living corpses to a formation capable of slaughtering Saint Kings as soon as they came across one. The white tiger had utterly destroyed any piece of the Fantasy Star Ocean ever since it had appeared. The noises he produced essentially echoed through the general region, attracting them all to it. Jian Chen remained on the white tiger's back along the way, passing through various formations unharmed despite the terrifying experience. There were many more formations in the actual Fantasy Star Ocean than the outskirts, and they were much stronger too. There were hundreds of killing, illusionary, and trapping formations for saint rulers. The white tiger fully utilized these formations to trap many saint rulers. There were also many powerful killing formations for saint kings. The formation created from a drop of Ergens's blood was only one of them. The white tiger finished off over 10 saint king corpses through them. 3 of the Saint King corpses had been obliterated by the formation made from Ergin's blood and failed to rebuild their bodies even after a great time. A few others were trapped in a different formation, unable to break free, while the other Saint King corpses all fell into various killing formations. Their bodies were constantly destroyed by the formations until all their energy was consumed and they were unable to reform their bodies. The white tiger produced sky-shaking roars to attract the nearby Saint Ruler corpses time after time. On the other hand, Jianchen laid on its back without doing anything. Over 300 Saint Ruler corpses tailed them closely in the meantime. Jianchen had now understood. The white tiger wanted to play. It treated this process entirely as a fun game. The various formations were unable to trap the white tiger, while the living corpses were not as fast as it. Even Saint King living corpses could not be able to catch up after the white tiger unfurled its wings. It could be said that in the Fantasy Star Ocean, as long as there were not any Saint Emperor corpses, nothing could threaten the white tiger. Jianchen's eyes suddenly narrowed. Several kilometers ahead, space was distorted. He was unable to see what was happening inside clearly. Jianchen had come across this many times. It was just a sign of an activated formation. However, an indistinct purple figure attracted Jianchen's attention in the blurry distorted space. "It's the Heavenly Enchantress. She's fallen into a formation," Jianchen murmured. He recognized who the purple figure was and his heart tightened. He pointed forwards and called out, "Xiao Bai, head over there quickly." The white tiger basically took Jianchen's word for it. It did not hesitate at all, immediately changing directions and charging at the formation while hundreds of Saint Ruler corpses followed them. It was a gray, hazy space in the formation. The Heavenly Enchantress levitated 1 meter in the air with her legs crossed, while the unadorned zither of the demonic cry laid on her hands. 10 elegant white fingers formed blurry afterimages, quickly playing the first 20 strings of the zither. She produced notes after notes hurriedly, while the 21st zither string would also be struck from time to time. It would result in violent rumbles in the surroundings. The Heavenly Enchantress became extremely grim and her forehead was already covered in a layer of sweat. She had continued into the depths after she had been separated from Jianchen the night before. She had accidentally fallen into a powerful formation, one of the top-level formations of the Dragon Clan. It was well known since the ancient times. It was the absolute killing formation, 10,000 dragons. It was said that in the ancient times, 3 Saint Emperors of the 100 races died to this exact formation, achieving wide renown. It was known as one of the most powerful killing formations in the world. Deafening dragon roars constantly boomed through the illusionary hazy space. The entire space was filled with huge dragons. They all used their dragon breaths, swung their claws, used various secret techniques or just charged directly at the center. There sat the Heavenly Enchantress in the air. She used her zither to block the attacks from all directions strenuously. Countless sound waves shot from the zither, surging in all directions. The formation was extremely well known during the ancient times. It was recorded clearly in Mercenary City, detailing exactly how terrifying it was. As a result, the Heavenly Enchantress understood this formation very well. The absolute killing formation, 10,000 dragons, was just as the name suggested. It was a lethal formation formed from a total of 10,000 dragons. The formation had 5 forms. In the first form, all 10,000 dragons were as powerful as Class 5 magical beasts. In the second form, they all increased to Class 6 in strength. With the third form, the 10,000 dragons were all Class 7 magical beasts. All 10,000 dragons would be raised to Class 8 with the fourth form. Against 10,000 Class 8 magical beasts, even peak Saint Kings would be utterly doomed once they entered the formation. The dragons would reach Class 9 in the fifth form. Each dragon would be as strong as a Supreme Saint Emperor. The 10,000 dragons would be equivalent to 10,000 Saint Emperors. However, throughout the Dragon Clan's history, the fifth form had always remained a legend. They were only able to use the fourth form at most. However, the 3 Saint Emperors of the 100 races had all died to the fourth form during the war. I hope this 10,000 dragons formation is incomplete with the third form being its limit. The heavenly enchantress prayed in her heart. She was still able to forcefully break through the third form if she burned her vitality greatly, but once it reached the fourth form, it would be certain death for her. She had already been trapped in the formation for several hours. In this time, she broke through the first and second form of the formation by herself. She currently faced the third form. All 10,000 dragons possessed the strength of Class 7 magical beasts. It was equivalent to 10,000 saint rulers. Roar! Suddenly, all 10,000 dragons roared at the sky simultaneously. Soft whisperings drowned the space and a vast energy radiated from the 10,000 dragons, filling the entire region. They've started to use their innate ability. The heavenly enchantress murmured. She was extremely grim. The innate abilities from 10,000 Class 7 dragons was enough to kill any saint ruler. It was even enough to make ordinary saint kings worry. The heavenly enchantress gritted her teeth and a sliver of determination appeared in her eyes. A slender finger gently touched the 23rd string. Her finger was cut as soon as she came into contact with it. Bright red blood immediately began to flow, before being absorbed by the string. The 23rd string became completely red after absorbing her blood. It radiated an extremely profound aura which seemed to contain the laws of the world. At the same time, a gentle, graceful zither note seemed to hum softly from beyond the sky, echoing through the entire formation space. The heavenly enchantress paled from the loss of blood through her finger. This blood was not ordinary blood, it was essence blood, containing the 3 vital energies of a human. It was extremely precious. Currently, the heavenly enchantress used her vitality as a price to use an ability completely beyond her strength. Roar! All 10,000 dragons produced an earth-shaking roar. It was filled with the endless might of dragons and seemed to be able to shatter the void. It created countless sound waves, layering upon one another in the formation space as it quickly radiated towards the heavenly enchantress with an aura of absolute destruction. The heavenly enchantress gently struck the 23rd string at the same time. Ding! It rose like the first sound in the world. It was only a musical note, yet it contained a great power. A powerful sound wave that was visible with the naked eye began to expand in all directions at an unbelievable speed. The sound completely suppressed the roar of the 10,000 dragons. Wherever it passed through, space would ripple, blazing through anything that blocked its way. It surged towards the 10,000 dragons like a hot knife through butter, gently colliding with the 10,000 dragons. Soundlessly, all 10,000 Class 7 dragons in the formation space disintegrated. The third form had been broken. The heavenly enchantress had played the 23rd string at the cost of her vitality. All 10,000 dragons fell to a single wave of sound. The 23rd string trembled violently. The heavenly enchantress had already become sheet white as all blood drained from her face. Her eyes also dulled for a period of time, revealing the weakness she struggled to conceal. Roar! Suddenly, another dragon roar rose up. Soon afterward, vast presences appeared in the formation space. The 10,000 dragons had reformed their bodies and they each radiated with an aura countless times more powerful than before. Despair immediately appeared in the heavenly enchantress' eyes when she saw this. She said with endless bitterness, "The fourth form. It's the fourth form. I never thought this would be a complete one. Looks like I'm fated to die here today." Breaking through the third form of the 10,000 dragons formation was already her absolute limit. She possessed no more strength for any resistance against the fourth form, a form that could even slaughter saint emperors. Chapter 827, A Hazy Relationship. The absolute killing formation had completed its fourth form. All 10,000 dragons revived, now Class 8 magical beasts. Each dragon was over 30 meters long and radiated with a great aura. Even the surrounding atmosphere seemed to thicken. Everything looked extremely realistic even though it was all just created from a formation. The vast aura from the 10,000 dragons pressed against the heavenly enchantress to the point where she struggled to breathe, as if she was dying from asphyxiation. Another dragon roar resounded and several dozen dragons charged at the heavenly enchantress simultaneously. Their great auras were like a huge mountain, brutally pressing against the heavenly enchantress' soft body. The heavenly enchantress was pale, she had already given up on all resistance. When she broke through the third form of the formation, she had already lost a great amount of vitality. She was so weak that she would not even have the power to face the third form again right now, much less the fourth. Several dozen huge Class 8 dragons aggressively charged at the heavenly enchantress, wanting to break her into pieces. The distance between them decreased rapidly. The heavenly enchantress slowly closed her eyes. Her heart was filled with an unwillingness to give in, but she had no power to resist the fourth form. A white light suddenly flashed in the hazy space just as the several dozen dragons were 100 meters from her. A 3-meter-long, winged white tiger suddenly appeared in the formation space. On its back rode a handsome young man who seemed to be in his 20s. Jian Chen directly charged into the space of the formation on the white tiger. As soon as he entered, the scene before him changed drastically. He saw the might of the absolute killing formation clearly. He appeared right beside the heavenly enchantress, so everything he saw was exactly what the heavenly enchantress was experiencing. A few dragons had already flown over, swinging their huge dragon claws filled with energy capable of shattering the void at him. The claws were already less than 10 meters from their heads. Time was tight. Jian Chen did not have the time to say anything. He directly grabbed the heavenly enchantress and placed her onto the tiger's back. He bellowed hurriedly, "Xiao Bai, let's go." The white tiger growled and all of its hairs suddenly stood up. It clearly had also felt the great danger rapidly drawing closer. It did not hesitate at all, unfurling the wings on its back suddenly and turning into a streak of white light, leaping forward with lightning speed. They disappeared instantly, leaving the space of the absolute killing formation. Jian Chen carried the heavenly enchantress in his arms on the tiger's back. He relaxed slightly as soon as he saw the surroundings return to normal. He knew they had already escaped from the powerful formation. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath, slowly calming himself. But just as he sucked in that breath, he smelt a vague fragrance. His heart, which had calmed down with great difficulty, immediately shuddered. His attention, which had been focused on the experience in the formation from before, was directed toward the heavenly enchantress. Currently, the heavenly enchantress had collapsed on Jian Chen's body powerlessly. Her slightly warm body pressed closely to Jian Chen's somewhat narrow chest, her face pale and her eyes dull. She was extremely weak. Breaking the third form of the formation before had cost her dearly, to the point where she did not even have the power to move. The zither of the demonic cry she always carried had disappeared too, returning inside her body. Feeling the heavenly enchantress's soft body in the fragrance, Jian Chen's mind began to toss and turn once again. The heavenly enchantress had always been a dignified, saintly and inviolable woman to Jian Chen. Never had he thought they would be so physically close. After spending a while stunned, he immediately asked, "Senior, are you fine?" The heavenly enchantress turned her head slightly to look at the Jian Chen. A red flush immediately appeared on her concealed face when she realized that she had collapsed in Jian Chen's boso. However, she recovered very quickly, immediately sitting up with some difficulty and moving away from Jian Chen's chest. She said, "I never thought you'd still be alive." The heavenly enchantress's voice carried a sliver of surprise, but it was extremely indifferent. Jian Chen quickly calmed himself down and smiled. Fortunately, Junior found a way to deal with the living corpses. Otherwise, it would perhaps be impossible for me to see Senior again. The heavenly enchantress rocked side to side in the wild wind as the white tiger ran. She did not ask how Jian Chen had dealt with the saint ruler corpses but instead stared at the white tiger beneath her in astonishment. She said, "What's up with this magical beast? It seems that it saved me from the formation before. It's actually able to escape, even after falling into an absolute killing formation. Unbelievable. Xiao Bai's not your everyday magical beast. He can move around as he wishes in the fantasy star ocean. Those formations are unable to trap Xiao Bai." Jian Chen explained. A sliver of surprise immediately appeared in the heavenly enchantress' eyes. She asked, "How's that possible? The fantasy star ocean is the land where the dragon clan lived. There's the presence of dragon aura, so even beasts of antiquity would feel suppressed here. How's he unaffected? And why aren't the formations able to trap him?" "Perhaps because Xiao Bai is different," Jian Chen said ambiguously. He did not provide her with a more detailed explanation. A beast-like roar suddenly appeared from behind just as the heavenly enchantress wanted to continue her questions. The heavenly enchantress subconsciously looked back. Her eyes narrowed abruptly when she saw the scene behind. There were at least 100 saint ruler corpses currently chasing them, unwilling to let them go. The heavenly enchantress became grim once again. She said softly, "My vitality is greatly expanded. I don't have the power to continue to battle. You're the only one who can deal with them. Don't worry, Xiao Bai will handle it," Jian Chen guaranteed seriously. Afterward, he patted the white tiger's back and said, "Xiao Bai, stop playing around. Hurry up and deal with the trouble behind us. You've basically attracted all the living corpses in the general region." The white tiger immediately growled, as if it was responding to Jian Chen. Afterward, the white tiger passed through powerful formation after powerful formation with the saint ruler corpses. It finally finished off all the saint ruler corpses, pursuing them after doing this over and over again for 2 whole hours. Along the way, the heavenly enchantress also finally witnessed the terrifying part of Xiao Bai. It really was as Jian Chen had said, no formations in the fantasy star ocean able to trap it. It could pass through them as it wished. Jian Chen did not hurry into the depths of the fantasy star ocean after they dealt with all the corpses, and instead collected as many heavenly resources as he could. It must be mentioned that there really were many heavenly resources in the fantasy star ocean. 10,000-year heavenly resources were basically everywhere. There were even 100,000-year heavenly resources. With the white tiger's sense of smell, no heavenly resource, no matter how well hidden, could avoid the fate of being picked by Jian Chen. The two of them worked like this for an entire day, virtually picking all the heavenly resources present in the general region. The day's harvest was extremely rich. Not only did he pick hundreds of different 10,000-year heavenly resources, he even obtained a dozen or so 100,000-year heavenly resources. If all these heavenly resources were consumed by the white tiger, its strength would leap up by a great portion. Only after busying themselves for an entire day did the human-beast duo stop. The heavenly enchantress essentially spent the entire time cross-legged on the white tiger's back, recuperating. She was the person most at leisure. At dusk, Jian Chen found another cave to settle down in. Now that almost all the living corpses in the region were trapped by formations, Jian Chen did not need to worry about the same incident as last night occurring again, especially with the white tiger's help. As a result, he settled down boldly and without any worry. The pitch-black cave only had a single luminous pearl as a light source. The weakened heavenly enchantress sat in a slightly dark corner, currently recovering silently with her eyes closed. "I have some radiant spirit pills here. It should have an effect on your injuries." The heavenly enchantress heard a warm voice. Jian Chen currently squatted beside her with a jade bottle in his hand. He could not help but think of the scene where he carried the heavenly enchantress as they fled from the formation earlier in the day right now. Complicated emotions arose in the depths of his eyes. The heavenly enchantress slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the jade bottle in Jian Chen's hand calmly and gently shook her head. I'm not injured. I've just expended too much of my vitality. I need heavenly resources to recuperate. Jian Chen pulled out 5 10,000-year heavenly resources from his space ring without the slightest hesitation and passed them to the heavenly enchantress. He said, I don't know if this is enough. If it's not enough, I still have 100,000-year heavenly resources. A surprised light flashed in the heavenly enchantress' eyes. She looked at Jian Chen with mixed emotions, before extending her soft, white hand to receive Jian Chen's heavenly resources. She replied softly, thank you. Seeing Jian Chen give away its fine food, the white tiger produced an uneven sound as it laid on the ground. Its small, bright eyes were filled with the emotion of being wronged. Jian Chen turned to the white tiger and comforted, Xiao Bai, there's plenty of heavenly resources outside. As soon as the sun rises tomorrow, we'll continue our search for them. Hearing that, the white tiger forgave Jian Chen for giving away its heavenly resources. Jian Chen did not choose to advance into the depths of the fantasy star ocean for the next few days as the heavenly enchantress was still recovering. Instead, he carved out a new cave as a temporary dwelling and stayed there, waiting for the heavenly enchantress to recuperate. The wait lasted for half a month. During that time, the heavenly enchantress completely recovered any lost vitality with the help of the 10,000-year heavenly resources, returning her strength to its peak. Afterward, she left the cave with Jian Chen. Outside the cave, the white tiger had become 3 meters long once again. Jian Chen sat down on the white tiger's back without holding back at all, before turning to look at the veiled heavenly enchantress. He said, Senior, you should get on. We travel much faster on Xiao Bai's back and we can avoid any of those formations during this time. The heavenly enchantress stood outside the cave and after a while of deliberation, she accepted Jian Chen's suggestion. She sat down on the white tiger's back without a single word, but she always maintained a certain distance from Jian Chen. Chapter 828, Dragon Souls. The heavenly enchantress sat cross-legged on the white tiger while she held her zither. Her back was toward Jian Chen, maintaining a distance of around half a meter from him. She said nothing. Jian Chen could clearly smell a faint fragrance from her body despite the distance. Jian Chen could even feel a slight warmth from the fragrance, as if it was the heavenly enchantress' body heat. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and dismissed the random thoughts. He slowly calmed down, before patting the white tiger's back. Xiao Bai, let's go. The white tiger produced a growl filled with discontent and aggrieve. It seemed to be extremely unwilling for the heavenly enchantress to sit on it, but the white tiger did not do anything excessive. In the end, it began to leave the area since it had no alternative. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress sat on the tiger's back in silence. The atmosphere was rather awkward, with only the whistling of wind to be heard. The white tiger ran through forests and mountains quickly, never going above an altitude of 10 meters in the air. It passed through many formations and directly made way for the depths. Whenever they encountered the pursuit of living corpses, they would immediately lead them into formations to trap them. Half a day later, the white tiger finally passed through the general region with the two of them, to the depths. Jian Chen and the white tiger did not just do nothing along the way, they collected all the heavenly resources they came across in the journey, increasing the heavenly resources they possessed by quite a lot once again. Roar! Suddenly, an earth-shaking dragon roar resounded from the depths of the fantasy star ocean. The sound carried an extremely great dragon aura that viewed the world with contempt, as if all beasts needed to submit themselves to it. A red figure appeared in their sights soon afterward. It was above the 10-meter threshold, in the forbidden region of the sky. However, nothing was triggered, as if the 10-meter threshold had no effect on the red figure. The white tiger came to a screeching stop. Its bright eyes instantly narrowed, staring closely at the red figure that shot over from the distance. It growled deeply. The eyes of both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress narrowed abruptly, concentrating on the red figure. As it approached, it gradually became clear to the two of them, it was actually a 300-meter-long red dragon, just like the dragons in the absolute killing formation. The heavenly enchantress's expression changed greatly. She stared at the dragon, which quickly approached them in disbelief and immediately struggled to remain calm. She exclaimed involuntarily, "That's a dragon soul. How is that possible? Why would a dragon soul appear in the Fantasy Star Ocean?" "Dragon soul?" Jian Chen murmured softly when he heard this. He immediately asked, "Senior, are dragon souls very powerful?" The heavenly enchantress became extremely grim. She said with a deep voice, "Although dragon souls only appear in the form of souls, they're much more powerful compared to living corpses. Not only do they maintain all of what they've learned in their former lives, they also have an extremely great potential for battle, and they even retain their innate abilities. They're known to be invincible among magical beasts of the same class. Even beasts of antiquity are unable to contest with it. It's just that several tens of thousand years ago, all the dragon souls were sealed into the dragon's necropolis. It's impossible for them to come out. Yet, a dragon soul actually appeared here. Has the seal been lifted?" Jian Chen also became rather stern. Dragon souls that maintained what they learned in their past lives, as well as their innate abilities, could not be compared to the mindless living corpses. Even if it was against a Saint King corpse, Jian Chen at least had the ability to dodge or avoid them, or even use the 10-meter threshold to kill them off. However, Jian Chen would struggle very much against the dragon souls that maintained their abilities from their past lives, even if it was just a 6th heavenly layer saint ruler. "Quick, find a place to hide. I'm guessing that there's not just one dragon soul. It's very possible that all the dragon souls from the necropolis have been freed," the heavenly enchantress said. She was extremely serious. Jian Chen showed no hesitance, immediately getting the white tiger retreat quickly. However, the dragon soul had already discovered them. It produced an earth-shaking roar as it charged at them threateningly. "We need to finish off this dragon soul as soon as possible," Jian Chen bellowed. The dragon-slaying sword had already appeared in his hand. Casting the illusionary flash, he turned into a blur that shot toward the dragon soul. Roar! The dragon soul produced another roar, opening its mouth and spitting dragon flames that surged towards Jian Chen with a terrifying heat. Jian Chen dodged the dragon flames with the illusionary flash immediately. Radiating with an aura of destruction, the sword filled with chaotic force stabbed into the rather illusory belly of the dragon soul. Jian Chen could only stab its lower abdomen due to the 10-meter threshold and the size of the dragon. Chaotic force seemed to be extremely effective against the dragon soul. The dragon soul roared out in pain and its belly dulled immediately. It suddenly opened its great mouth at Jian Chen and a terrifying suction force appeared, as if it wanted to suck Jian Chen past the 10-meter threshold. Jian Chen began to shake immediately, his 2 feet had already begun to leave the ground slowly. However, Jian Chen then jolted. Chaotic force surged out from his body, blocking the suction from the sky, where he then moved slightly. He used the illusionary flash to leave the area and appeared on another side of the dragon. A red flash suddenly appeared. The dragon's thick tail forcefully struck Jian Chen with lightning speed. Slap! Jian Chen's clothes immediately turned into shreds, revealing the golden silk mail inside. The silk mail glowed with a hazy gold light to block the dragon's tail, but Jian Chen was still sent flying into the distance by the powerful force. The dragon's soul maintained all of its abilities from its former life. Not only was it extremely powerful in battle, it also possessed an extremely rich battle experience. The mindless corpses were incomparable to it. The dragon soul had already caught up to Jian Chen with a red flash. Its claws glowed with a layer of scarlet haze as it quickly swiped toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen and the dragon soul fought intensely. The dragon soul was class 7 and of the 5th heavenly layer, but it was no weaker than 6th heavenly layer saint rulers when it used its various secret techniques from the dragon clan. It was even powerful enough to battle with a class 7 saint ruler. Jian Chen struggled greatly to deal with it. Roar! 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 Dragon roars began to fill the sky one after another at this very moment in the distance. The sound carried the great aura of dragons. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress immediately revealed ugly expressions. From the roars, they could already tell that there were at least a dozen or so dragon souls, and they were all class 7 magical beasts. Crap, the dragon souls that were originally sealed into the necropolis by the 10 protector clans really have escaped. The heavenly enchantress was astounded. She showed no hesitance, immediately placing her zither on her knees. She warned, "I'll use the zither to control the souls. You need to disperse them as fast as you can or will probably be doomed. The formations on the island are useless against dragon souls, so don't think about using the method you used with the living corpses." As soon as she began to play the zither, the dragon soul's movements slowed. Its eyes became dull, affected by the zither music. Jian Chen immediately struck out without holding back. He slashed at the dragon soul with chaotic force in the dragon-slaying sword, finally extinguishing the soul and causing it to disappear. Before it disappeared, the dragon soul produced a mournful cry, causing the dragons flying over to become even more aggravated. A dozen or so roars that were filled with hatred rang out immediately. They approached them quickly. Jian Chen could even feel a tremendous aura from within these roars. It was a class 8 dragon soul. Jian Chen used the illusionary flash with no sign of hesitance, turning into a blur and returning to the white tiger's back. He bellowed grimly, "Xiao Bai, let's go." The white tiger immediately unfurled its wings, turning into a white streak of light. It currently fled with its full speed. However, the dragons were extremely fast, especially the class 8 dragon soul. Its speed had even exceeded the white tiger's. Jian Chen could already see that it was an azure dragon, drawing closer and closer to the white tiger. It's a class 8 wind dragon. It's impossible for us to outrun it. Quickly find a cave and hide in it, the heavenly enchantress said grimly. We'll be safe if we hide in a cave? Jian Chen asked urgently. Although these dragon souls have the abilities of their past lives, they don't have intelligence. We only need to flee to beyond their range of vision and hide in a cave, before blocking up the cave with a boulder. It'll conceal us completely from the dragon soul's senses. The heavenly enchantress's voice was rather frantic. She knew quite a lot regarding these dragon souls. They were actual class 7 or 8 magical beasts and could not be so easily handled like the living corpses. Behind them, the class 8 wind dragon drew closer and closer. Currently, it was less than 5 kilometers away. With this current speed, the dragon soul would probably catch up before they could even enter the outskirts of the Fantasy Star Ocean. Xiao Bai, quickly find a cave to hide in. Jian Chen immediately told the white tiger. The white tiger had also sensed danger. It flapped its wings frantically, flying at extreme speeds along the ground. Traveling around a mountain peak, they finally discovered a cave, immediately hiding in it. Jian Chen pulled out the dragon-slaying sword, collapsing the ceiling of the entrance. Countless pieces of rocks fell, tightly sealing the entrance. He used the mountain rocks to cover the entrance of the cave, cutting off their presences. As the entrance was sealed, it also cut off all light, causing the cave to become pitch black. However, both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress did not dare to make any sounds, concealing their presences and standing there unmovingly. The white tiger had also sensed the great danger, copying the two of them and standing there quietly. It did not make any sound, though all its hairs were already standing on its end. Roar. Several seconds later, a great dragon roar echoed from outside the cave. It caused the rocks that sealed the cave to constantly tremble. Chapter 829, Sorrow of the Golden Divine Dragon. Several seconds later, a great dragon roar resounded from outside the cave, causing the rocks that sealed it to constantly tremble. Inside the cave, the two humans and magical beast held their breaths. They did not even dare to exhale too loudly, terrified that they would alarm the dragon souls outside. They were like cicadas in winter, quiet. There were a dozen or so Class 7 Dragon Soul, even if they ignored the Class 8 Dragon Soul that they definitely could not handle. The group was so powerful that only Supreme Saint Kings had the ability to face it. Also, different laws of the world had already formed in the Fantasy Star Ocean. It was different from the mysteries of the world outside, so neither Saint Rulers nor Saint Kings could use their abilities once they entered this place. No ordinary Saint King would be able to face off against these dragon souls here, much less Jian Chen. The dragon roars shook the ground and even made the firmament tremble. The powerful sound waves caused thick cracks to appear one after another on the countless rocks in the surroundings, and many mountains even collapsed. The roars occurred right outside the cave where they were hiding. The terrifying sound pierced through the obstruction of the rocks and into Jian Chen's ears, causing his mind to ring constantly. He had already become temporarily deaf, unable to hear anything. Moreover, inside the dragon roar, Jian Chen felt a vast dragon aura, as if it was a lord ruling the work, making everything submit to it. The deafening dragon roars finally began to gradually grow further and further away. The Class 8 Dragon Soul existed as a soul, it had no intelligence, so it did not discover where Jian Chen was hiding. Listening as the dragon roars grew further away, both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress immediately exhaled in great relief. Thinking about the frightening scene from before, they both felt a lingering fear. Once the Class 8 Dragon Soul caught up to them, they just could not imagine the predicament they would face. Perhaps, the two of them would never be able to leave the Fantasy Star Ocean, with their corpses stuck here for all of eternity, before turning into things like those living corpses. With the departure of the Class 8 Dragon Soul, the Class 7 Dragon Souls also followed closely. They whistled past the cave, following the Class 8 Dragon Soul. Only when all the Dragon Souls left did Jian Chen and the Heavenly Enchantress finally dare to stretch their bodies, sighing deeply. The Heavenly Enchantress arrived at the end of the cave and wedged a fist-sized luminous pearl into the ceiling of the cave. She said, "We've already attracted the attention of those Dragon Souls. According to how the Dragon Souls move, they will probably patrol this region for a period of time in the future, so it's best if we don't go out in the following days. Let's stay here and wait for all the Dragon Souls to leave before venturing outside." "Senior, just what are those Dragon Souls? Why would they appear? Didn't the ancient Dragon clan already disappear? So why would there be Dragon Souls here now?" Jian Chen asked in doubt. He knew that the Heavenly Enchantress had an extremely deep understanding of the Fantasy Star Ocean. He hoped to get an answer from her. The Heavenly Enchantress walked over to a corner and sat down. After a period of silence, she slowly began to respond. "Within the ancient dragon clan, there's a necropolis. This necropolis is the only grave for the entire race. Throughout history, all members of the dragon clan would be buried there after they died, regardless of their status in the clan. The dragon souls you met just then were born from the necropolis. I once read some records that touched on the necropolis in Mercenary City. Apparently, there weren't dragon souls in the beginning, however, ever since the dragon clan disappeared the island changed, becoming one of the most dangerous regions of the continent, Fantasy Star Ocean. Dragon souls began to appear in the necropolis for some reason. These dragon souls are extremely powerful, other than the fact that they lack intelligence, they completely maintained all that they have learned in their former lives, perfectly preserving their strength. They exist as a special form, as souls, and are no different to the living corpses. They're unkillable. Even if you disperse the souls, they will completely be revived in the necropolis, returning to their peak strength. Just how many dragon souls are in the necropolis? Jian Chen became stern. His heart was filled with doubt. Why did the ancient dragon clan disappear? Just what happened to the island for it to become so odd? The unkillable living corpses, the dragon souls that would revive for mysterious reasons, all of this mystified Jian Chen. He was unable to explain it, and it even seemed to exceed what he knew. Other than the dragon clan, there was also the divine phoenix clan and the winged tiger god. They seemed to have disappeared together. Did they die, or did they go to a completely unknown world? The dragon clan may have disappeared in the ancient times, but they still have a lengthy history on the Tianyuan continent. With the accumulation through the generations, the dragon souls in the necropolis also increased in number. Let alone me, probably even the 10 protector clans and mercenary city have no idea just how many dragon souls there are. However, several tens of thousand years ago, all the experts of the 10 clans and mercenary city had come. With several saint emperors leading, they came with large numbers of saint kings and saint rulers, casting an ancient secret technique together to seal all the dragon souls in the necropolis, eliminating all the dragon souls from the Fantasy Star Ocean. However, we've now discovered dragon souls outside, so that means that the seal of the necropolis been broken. Other than this, I can't think of any other explanations. The heavenly enchantress's voice carried a slight worry, and she continued, I hope that the dragon souls won't end up outside. Otherwise, it'll be a disaster for the entire world. Tens of thousands years ago, our Tianyuan continent still had several saint emperors protecting it, so we had the power to repel these dragon souls. Yet now, the Tianyuan continent is only getting weaker with each generation. Other than the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, the Protector clans and Mercenary City have no other saint emperors to protect the continent. How would we be the opponents of these dragon souls with our weak strength? We aren't even powerful enough to seal the necropolis again. Jian Chen became slightly shocked with that. He asked, perhaps there are saint emperors in the necropolis? The heavenly enchantress nodded her head solemnly. There are, and it's not few. The Class 9 dragons have accumulated through the generations, not all from the same age. Otherwise, why would the 10 protector clans and mercenary city pay so much attention to it? Jian Chen immediately felt heavy-hearted. He could already imagine what the world would become like if all the dragon souls escape from the necropolis. It would definitely bring a calamity. After all, the dragon souls had no intelligence, all they knew was how to kill. It was impossible for them to coexist with the people outside. Jian Chen looked at the white tiger. He knew that perhaps the white tiger was the final shred of hope. As long as it completely matured, even if there were dragon souls that had surpassed Saint Emperor, there was no need to fear with its strength as the winged tiger god. In the ancient times, the winged tiger god was even able to slaughter the war god of the 100 races, Ergens, an existence that had 2 surpassed Saint Emperors. Its strength was at a terrifying level. Roar! At this very moment, another roar resounded from far away. It was the Class 8 wind dragon that had chased the 2 of them. It had already returned, and its constant roars echoed in the mountains. Afterward, it began to pace around the area without leaving, even after a long time. Not long afterward, the dozen or so Class 7 dragons also returned. They copied the Class 8 wind dragon, pacing about in a radius of 10 kilometers high up in the air, as if they were searching for Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress who had hid. Just like what I anticipated, they would pace around here mindlessly. Sensing the activity outside, the heavenly enchantress murmured softly. Jian Chen became bitter-faced. It's all over. If they never leave, doesn't that mean we'll always be trapped here? I hope they leave quickly. In the depths of the island stood a 300-meter-tall space gate, hanging in the air. It shone with a powerful golden light. Within the space gate, there was another world. This world was another space ripped open by someone with great abilities. It was extremely vast inside, stretching as far as the eye could see. On the ground, huge tombs stood in an orderly fashion beside each other like small mountains. Before each tomb was a gravestone of various heights. The tallest were several hundred meters tall, while the shortest were only a little over 9. Above the tombs, countless dragon souls of different sizes flew about subconsciously. All the dragon souls were extremely quiet and did not make any sounds at all. At this very moment, there were 2 figures before a 300-meter gravestone. One of them was a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s. He wore long, golden robes and his face was weather-worn. Currently, deep grief and sorrow spilled from his eyes as he stood before the gravestone with mixed emotions. The other person was a black-robed old man. He currently sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes, while powerful energy rippled around him. He was clearly cultivating right now. The 2 of them were the Class 8 magical beasts that had escaped from the artifact space, the golden divine dragon Rui Jin and the mutated divine alligator, He Yu. Why would it be like this? Why would it be like this? Why has the former island of the dragons become like this? What happened to the island before? Deep sorrow and grief appeared on the Rui Jin's face. He constantly looked around, sometimes looking at the countless dragon tombs that filled the space and sometimes looking at the dragon souls that flew around mindless in the sky at other times. It's changed. It's changed. It's all changed. The island is no longer the old island. The records of the island in my inherited memories is completely different from this. Furthermore, this necropolis, why have my dead clansmen turned into something like this? And my clansmen? Just where are you all? Where have you gone? Is it really like how that human Saint King described it? My dragon clan has already disappeared from the Tian Yuan continent along with the divine Phoenix clan. Even the ancient winged tiger god has disappeared with them. Just what happened before to my clansmen and the divine Phoenix clan? Why have you suddenly disappeared? Have you all died, or have you gone to some other place? And what's happened to the humans and magical beasts on the island? Why have they become like that? They've become soulless living corpses with indestructible bodies. Suddenly, Rui Jin stared into the distance. A red dragon slowly formed above a 30-meter tall gravestone. Rui Jin stared blankly at the red dragon. He murmured, "Why's it like this? Why's it like this?" His soul was already dispersed by someone, so why has it reformed? Why is all this happening? Chapter 830, The Crow King's Rage. Suddenly, He Yu, who sat in cultivation on the side, slowly opened his eyes. He looked towards Rui Jin and said, "Rui Jin, I feel the presence of the winged tiger god. It's already come." Rui Jin stared blankly at the red dragon soul that had just revived. Only after quite a while did he finally look away, shifting his gaze to He Yu. "I know. Other than the winged tiger god, even the human chased after by the saint artifact has come. He Yu, you're currently in the most crucial period. Cultivate without worry. After you break through to the 9th heavenly layer, we can go find the artifact spirit to heal your limb." With a careful glance, one would notice that He Yu's right sleeve was empty. He had completely lost his right arm. He Yu nodded. He looked at Rui Jin in deep gratitude and said, "Rui Jin, thank you." The only reason why he was able to absorb the energy of the world in the necropolis was because of Rui Jin. With him concealing He Yu's presence, the dragon souls were unable to detect He Yu as a foreign existence. Additionally, he used his own abilities to convert the energy in the necropolis before giving it to He Yu to absorb. Rui Jin roared at the sky. Deep sorrow and loneliness appeared on his face. "In my entire life, I've only had 2 friends. Other than that girl from the divine Phoenix clan, there's just you, He Yu. He Yu glanced at Rui Jin with mixed emotions. He seemed to be able to understand Rui Jin's current emotions, and a sliver of loneliness also appeared on his face. However, he quickly refocused his attention, slowly closing his eyes to continue his cultivation. He was preparing for an attempt to break through to the 9th heavenly layer. Rui Jin did not leave He Yu's side. Currently, no matter what happened, he could not even take a step away. He needed to conceal He Yu's presence, to guarantee his safety. Although the dragon souls had no consciousness and were filled with hostility, they would not attack clansmen. In the rather dark cave, both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress sat on the ground with their legs crossed. Jian Chen had already sent the white tiger back into the artifact space, allowing it continually increase its strength through the use of heavenly resources. Outside the cave, the roars of the dragon souls pierced the sky. It caused the mountain range to shake, preventing the two of them from getting any peace during this entire period. This was all because the dragon souls had increased to over 30 outside, with the weakest at class 7. The number of class 8 dragon souls had also increased to 3 from the initial one. 30-odd dragon souls directly patrolled about in a radius of several dozen kilometers, without any leaving at all since the beginning. In the cave, Jian Chen slowly closed his eyes. He stood up and paced about, while his eyebrows furrowed with a sliver of worry. He then looked at the heavenly enchantress and said, "Senior, it won't work if this continues. Are those dragon souls going to keep moving about outside? Is there any way to make them leave?" The heavenly enchantress slowly opened her eyes and after a slight deliberation, she said, "There is one way." Jian Chen's eyes brightened. He immediately asked, "What is it?" "The method is to have someone outside attract the attention of the dragon souls and then lead them away," the heavenly enchantress said indifferently. With that, a sliver of despair appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. The Fantasy Star Ocean was a danger zone only second to the Death's Nest on the Tian Yuan continent. There were extremely few people who dared to enter this place. It was even ordinary for no one to enter even after several decades. It was virtually impossible to get someone to attract the attention of the dragon souls outside. "Looks like we can only keep waiting." Jian Chen sighed softly. He sat down once again. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. He and the heavenly enchantress had basically passed that period of time in silence, without saying much at all. Meanwhile, the patrolling dragon souls did not leave, and instead increased in number, reaching over 40 from the initial 30-odd. Those other dragon souls were all drawn over by the initial dragon souls. They moved around mindlessly, without purposefully searching for anything. They did not seem to know about the presence of the two of them at all. 7 days later, Jian Chen could no longer sit around once again. He stood up and thought, "Why don't I recover some chaotic force instead of wasting time?" With that, a golden light immediately shot from the center of Jian Chen's eyebrows. It turned into a palm-sized golden tower. "What do you want to do?" As soon as Jian Chen did something, it attracted the heavenly enchantress's attention. She stared fixedly at Jian Chen with her beautiful eyes, glancing at the golden tower without the slightest clue. She carried an expression of curiosity. Currently, there were dragon souls moving about outside. They completely relied on the boulders blocking the cave entrance to isolate their presence and prevent the dragon souls from noticing them. As a result, the heavenly enchantress was worried that Jian Chen would create too large of a commotion and alarm the dragon souls outside. "Senior, I want to cultivate a little and recover some strength." Jian Chen replied. "No, with the residue energy, it will definitely attract the attention of the dragon souls outside," the heavenly enchantress said sternly. Her tone allowed no exceptions. Jian Chen looked at the golden tower and swore solemnly. "Don't worry. I'll cultivate in another space, so there won't be any residue energy at all. Naturally, it would be impossible to alarm the dragon souls outside. The heavenly enchantress looked at the golden tower. It was the second time she had seen it and she was extremely curious about its origins. She asked, "What is this?" Jian Chen hid nothing. Senior may not have seen it, but Senior should have heard of its name before. This tower is the saint artifact of the Radiant Saint Master Union. What? The artifact of the Union? The heavenly enchantress was shocked. She stared at the tower in disbelief and said, "Impossible. How did the saint artifact end up in your hands?" Jian Chen chuckled but did not give any further explanations. He said, "Senior, there's an independent space within the artifact. It's extremely safe in there. Why don't you come in with me? That way, even if our hiding location is discovered by the dragon souls, we won't be harmed at all." She calmed down very quickly. After some deliberation, she asked, "I've heard of the saint artifact from the Radiant Saint Master Union. Apparently, it's an extremely powerful divine artifact. I never thought it would end up in your hands. I wonder if we can use the artifact to leave this place." Jian Chen shook his head. "No, we can't. I just discussed this with the artifact spirit. The artifact is not originally from the Fantasy Star Ocean, so its presence will still be detected by the dragon souls. Once the artifact leaves this place, it will be targeted by the dragon souls outside and attacked. The Class 7 ones may not be able to harm the artifact spirit, but there are Saint Emperor dragon souls in the necropolis. Once we draw those dragon souls over, it'll probably be dangerous even if we hide in the artifact." The heavenly enchantress furrowed her eyebrows slightly. "Looks like we can only wait until the dragon souls leave. Alright, I'll enter the artifact space with you. Artifact spirit, take us in," Jian Chen ordered. 2 pillars of light immediately shot from the saint artifact, encasing the two of them before disappearing. In the blink of an eye, the dark cave became empty, with only a faintly glowing, golden artifact hanging in the air. Shortly afterward, the artifact slowly began to dull, becoming extremely ordinary-looking. Next, it slowly flew over to a dark corner, hiding itself behind a large rock. The current artifact space was very different from before. Before, when Jian Chen and the Radiant Saint Masters entered it to compete, the huge space only had a few Class 6 magical beasts, with no magical beast stronger than that. Now, the huge space had various magical beasts everywhere. They ranged from Class 1 to 5, and there were even some Class 6 magical beasts moving about. On a grassy plain, there were 2 Class 5 magical beasts currently locked in a life-or-death battle. The energy ripples from the great fight turned the surroundings into a mess, kicking rocks and sand into the air. Meanwhile, the beasts roared angrily. At this very moment, 2 pillars of white light suddenly appeared in the sky. The tight-clothed Jian Chen and the purple-dressed heavenly enchantress appeared. The heavenly enchantress held her zither in her arms. As soon as they arrived, she impatiently looked around with deep curiosity flooding her eyes. The sudden appearance of the two attracted the attention of the 2 fighting magical beasts. They could not help but stop and look at the sky. They looked vigilantly at the 2 people above with their vicious gazes. Just from their bestial instinct, they could feel a great threat from the 2 of them. Caw! At this very moment, an earth-shaking sound appeared in the distance. Immediately afterward, a powerful presence with rocketing killing intent appeared too. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes, looking towards the direction of the sound. He could not help but curl his lips into a cold smile. "It's that Class 7 Crow King. I didn't think it would still remember me. Looks like the Class 6 Crow I killed last time is a close kin of it." Saint Ruler abilities could be used at will in the artifact space. The Class 7 Crow King used spatial force, fusing with the surrounding space to shoot over from the distance at Jian Chen. In just a few seconds, a black dot appeared on the endless horizon, quickly increasing in size. It arrived before Jian Chen very quickly. It was a huge, jet-black crow that was several dozen meters in length. It radiated with a vast presence, causing the Class 5 magical beasts below who had stopped their fight to collapse on the ground while trembling. Their eyes were filled with dread. The crow stared fixedly at Jian Chen with its scarlet eyes. Hatred soared in its eyes, and it soon producing a horrible cry toward the sky. It turned into a black blur, shooting at Jian Chen while its pair of sharp claws shone with a cold light, directly clawing at Jian Chen's heart. Chapter 831, The Artifact's Monster Cores, You Dare. At this very moment, an angry yell sounded out of nowhere. It instantly froze the surrounding space, as if it had turned into extremely tough ice, trapping the Crow King tightly and cutting off all its mobility. The heavenly enchantress's eyes immediately narrowed when she saw the Class 7 Crow King being trapped. She could already tell that the Crow King was at the 7th heavenly layer. It could be imagined just how powerful the person who struck out in secret was, as he had actually trapped such a powerful magical beast mid-air. It was at least a supreme Saint King. The artifact spirit slowly appeared beside Jian Chen. He did not even glance at the Crow King, directly bowing at Jian Chen. "I greet Master." She immediately became astonished when she heard the spirit say Master. She stared at Jian Chen and the artifact spirit in the shape of a middle-aged. She was extremely shocked. Meanwhile, the trapped Crow King had also heard how the artifact spirit had referred to Jian Chen. Its reactions were even greater than the heavenly enchantress. The shock it experienced had reached the absolute limit. It was closely followed by deep dread and disbelief. It was born and raised in the artifact space, so it knew the artifact spirit's identity and strength extremely well. "Release that crow," Jian Chen said. "Yes, Master." The artifact spirit replied courteously, before immediately returning the frozen space to how it was before. The Crow King also regained control over its body as a result. However, the Crow King no longer dared to attack Jian Chen. It immediately transformed into a short, black-robed old man, kneeling on the ground. It said extremely courteously, "Mou greets Sir Artifact Spirit." The Artifact Spirit glared at the Crow King and said coldly, "How dare you actually disrespect Master?" The Crow King trembled all over and its eyes were filled with deep fear. It said with a shaking voice, "Please do not be angry, Sir Artifact Spirit, please do not be angry." Before, Mou did not know he was the master of Sir Artifact Spirit. "If I have done any offense, please forgive me." Seeing this, the heavenly enchantress became more and more astonished. A powerful Class 7 magical beast was actually begging the artifact spirit for forgiveness on its knees. This was extremely rare. After all, Class 7 magical beasts were equivalent to saint rulers and were naturally arrogant, let alone the fact that the Crow King had even reached the 7th heavenly layer. Even before Saint Kings, they would just act more courteously at most. They would never be so shaken. The heavenly enchantress could not help but guess at the artifact spirit's strength once again after she witnessed the events before her. However, what made her even more astonished was that such a powerful artifact spirit actually took a saint ruler as its master. This was an extremely great piece of news. "How are you related to the Class 6 crow that I killed initially?" Jian Chen inquired. With that, the short old man hesitated slightly. Originally, it did not want to answer Jian Chen's question, but as soon as it remembered Jian Chen's relationship with the artifact spirit, it could only reply obediently, "That was one of the 8 disciples I took, as well as the most outstanding disciple of the 8. He had an extremely great chance of breaking through to Class 7. Jian Chen became relieved and said, "You can go. In the future, if you still want to take vengeance on me, I will be here." The short old man hesitated slightly. It did not say anything and instead looked toward the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit said indifferently, "Since Master does not intend to pursue your disrespect from before, I will let you off the hook for now." You can go. The old man bowed deeply at the artifact spirit before turning and leaving. Afterward, Jian Chen, the heavenly enchantress and the artifact spirit arrived at the palace in the center of the space. She did not ask too many questions about this location, quietly leaving after choosing a hall. She planned to go into seclusion for a while. After dismissing the artifact spirit, Jian Chen also chose a quiet hall to go into seclusion. He wanted to recover his chaotic force. In an ice-cold and empty hall, Jian Chen sat cross-legged in the center, currently sorting the monster cores in his space ring. He had already planned to refine all these monster cores into chaotic force. Around him, the cores of various classes were already stacked up like mountains, radiating with great energy ripples. After sorting through all the monster cores, Jian Chen finally stopped. He used his thoughts to communicate with the sword spirits who were absorbing the multicolored stone, to get them to assist him in the refining. Ziying and Qing Suo immediately appeared above Jian Chen's head. With a flick of their hands, a small pile of monster cores immediately flew up between them, before being refined into strands of chaotic force. The mountainous piles around him were constantly decreased, refined into chaotic force by the sword spirits and entering Jian Chen's dantian. The chaotic Niden in Jian Chen's dantian slowly began to grow at a visible rate. After 2 days, all the mountainous monster cores around him were consumed without a single left. Meanwhile, Jian Chen's chaotic Niden had grown from the soybean size to the size of a thumb. The chaotic force he gained was extremely limited, less than 1/100th of the energy he absorbed below Mercenary City. This was because the vast majority of the cores were class 3, 4 and 5. He had already used up some of the class 6 monster cores before, so there were extremely few left. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. His eyebrows furrowed from worry. Currently, he had consumed all the monster cores on him. Other than the ruler armament and the dragon-slaying sword, he had nothing else he could refine into chaotic force. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Jian Chen's head. He murmured quietly, "There seems to be quite a few class 7 magical beasts in the artifact space. I wonder if the magical beasts who passed from old age had left behind any cores. If they have." Slowly, Jian Chen's eyes glowed brighter and brighter, before he abruptly stood up from the ground, rushing out of seclusion. Artifact Spirit. Outside the hall, Jian Chen directly summoned the artifact spirit. "Master, how may I be of service?" The artifact spirit appeared before Jian Chen soundlessly. Artifact spirit, don't many magical beasts exist in the artifact space? When those magical beasts die, do they leave behind monster cores? Jian Chen asked hurriedly. His heart was filled with a powerful anticipation. There are quite a few monster cores. The cores can only be absorbed by humans, so they're completely useless to magical beasts. However, after the deaths of their ancestors, many clans of magical beasts would consecrate them. If Master needs them, this one can go collect them immediately, the artifact spirit said. Jian Chen was ecstatic. His heart could not help but begin thumping heavily. He said urgently, "Artifact spirit, I need large amounts of cores. Collect it for me immediately." "Yes, Master." Afterward, all the clans of magical beasts in the entire artifact space fell into a commotion. The monster cores consecrated in their ancestral halls that were left behind by their ancestors, all flew away. Their halls, which used to be filled with various high-class monster cores, had become empty. This occurred to all the magical beast clans in the artifact space of ranging sizes. All the monster cores kept by those magical beasts flew away under the attention of countless experts, whether high-class or low-class. There were even several powerful class 7 magical beasts who went to prevent the cores from leaving, but as soon as they moved, they were immediately met with the suppression of the artifact space. In the end, they could only watch on helplessly as the monster cores left behind by their ancestors disappeared into the distance. "It's Sir Artifact Spirit." Sir, Artifact Spirit has taken away all the monster cores left behind by the ancestors. The powerful Class 7 magical beasts understood very quickly. Even though there were many beasts who were absolutely infuriated, they did not dare to grumble too much. This was because in this space, the Artifact Spirit was like a god. He was absolute. Other than this, several monster cores buried deep within the ground broke out. They all flew towards the central palace. The cores had been accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years. The amount had already reached an extremely terrifying level. Other than the tiny portion that was taken by the competitors from the Radiant Saint Master Union, the remaining were all left behind in the space. Inside the hall, Jian Chen stared blankly at the floor before him. He only saw countless monster cores flying in from outside in a steady, unending stream. They all piled on the ground neatly, and in just a few seconds, the monster cores had already formed a small mountain, blocking up the corridors. Master, I am currently collecting all the monster cores in this space. There's no more room here, so I've placed the remaining cores in another hall. If Master needs them, Master can go take them whenever. A while later, Jian Chen heard the Artifact Spirit's voice. Looking at the surroundings, he saw mountainous piles of monster cores. Jian Chen gulped with some effort. If the cores here were an elephant, the monster cores in his space ring would basically be an ant. It was incomparable. Artifact Spirit, how many high-class monster cores are there here in total? Jian Chen asked with some difficulty. Master, in the past hundreds of thousand years, there has been over 2,000 Class 8 magical beasts and 50,000 Class 7 magical beasts that have appeared in the artifact space in total. Other than the Class 8 magical beasts who left a few days ago, the remaining monster cores have all been preserved. As a result, there are over 2,000 Class 8 monster cores, over 50,000 Class 7 monster cores and an uncountable number below Class 7, the Artifact Spirit said. Jian Chen was completely stunned. Currently, any thought processes in his mind had stopped. Only what the Artifact Spirit had said echoed through his head. Over 2,000 Class 8 monster cores, over 50,000 Class 7 monster cores. Over 2,000 Class 8 monster cores, over 50,000 Class 7 monster cores, Jian Chen muttered mindlessly, his voice trembled. Currently, euphoria had drowned Jian Chen's entire spirit. He was drunk in endless joy, unable to return to his senses even after a great period of time. Chapter 832, Secluded Cultivation. Only after an extremely long time did Jian Chen finally return to his senses. He looked around at the surrounding monster cores. He felt like this pleasant surprise had just come too suddenly. Before, he was still worrying over the lack of monster cores, yet currently, the Artifact Spirit had directly helped him find vast numbers of them. The number of Class 7 and 8 monster cores among them had reached an unimaginable level, even for him. It made Jian Chen feel like he was currently living in a dream and that everything happening before him was not real. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath, slowly calming himself down. He looked around at the neatly stacked monster cores which had plugged all the corridors. Without any hesitation, he began to put them into his space ring. There were monster cores from all classes. After placing several thousand into a space ring, Jian Chen finally calmed down completely. Shortly afterward, he seemed to think of something, immediately stopping what he was doing. He thought, if I shove all the monster cores into one space ring, wouldn't that mean I would lose a lot of monster cores if I happen to lose that ring? Right now, I've already become the master of the Artifact Spirit. The Artifact Spirit is hidden in my mind, it's impossible to lose it. It seems like leaving these monster cores in the artifact space is the safest. Thinking this through, Jian Chen stopped shoving monster cores into his space ring. He turned around to face the Artifact Spirit. Find me a large room for storage and place all these monster cores into it. Also, grab 100 Class 7 monster cores for me. Yes, Master. The artifact spirit replied immediately. With a wave of his hand, the mountainous piles of monster cores in the surroundings all disappeared. Only exactly 100 fist-sized Class 7 monster cores remained floating in the air. Jian Chen looked at the 100 Class 7 monster cores, before frowning slightly. He walked up and grabbed a core, but it had completely gone dull. The thick layer of dust on it had already formed a thin rock shell, tightly encasing the monster core. From a single glance, the fist-sized monster core seemed just like a round rock. Jian Chen squeezed his hand gently, crushing the stone layer into pieces. It revealed the monster core hidden inside. The core remained dull, with only tiny ripples of energy hidden extremely deep within. Seeing this, Jian Chen's eyebrows immediately furrowed tightly. Master, these monster cores have already existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Quite a lot of the energy inside has leaked out over time, and the remaining energy had basically solidified. The artifact spirit explained from one side. Jian Chen stared attentively at the Class 7 monster core in his hand. You're right. A lot of the energy in the monster core has leaked out. Only about 60% remains. Monster cores were different from ruler armaments. On the Tianyuan continent, every ruler armament was a powerful weapon valued by people and would be stored carefully. People would treat them like their own children. Additionally, ruler armaments could absorb the energy of the world to repair themselves, so ruler armaments could be preserved for a very long time. However, monster cores could not. They were only helpful to humans and were of no use to magical beasts, as magical beasts were unable to absorb the energy in them like humans. As a result, after powerful magical beasts pass away, the monster cores left behind could only be consecrated as holy relics, as a way to express respect to their ancestors. Once monster cores were stored for a long time, the energy within them would slowly leak out and then solidify. Although some of the energy has leaked out, these monster cores are still extremely helpful to me. Artifact Spirit, I will be going into seclusion immediately. I will naturally call you when I need you. Also, in the period I go into seclusion, pay attention to the activity outside. If anything happens, call me right away. Jian Chen said. Yes, Master. In the quiet hall, Jian Chen sat cross-legged on the cold floor. The sword spirits had already appeared, currently cross-legged above Jian Chen's head, refining the first-class 7 monster core with difficulty. The speed of refinement was extremely slow, even several times more difficult than refining the ruler armaments at the beginning. The remaining energy in the hundreds of thousand-years-old monster cores had already solidified completely. During the refining process, Jian Chen felt like the energy in the monster cores had turned into an extremely tough ice cube. Currently, he had the ice cube in his mouth, sucking any moisture from it with difficulty. It was extremely exhausting. The first monster core was finally refined after an entire day. It turned into a tiny strand of chaotic force, entering Jian Chen's body. The strand of chaotic force was clearly less than what he had obtained from refining the ruler armaments before. Even though it was like that, Jian Chen felt extremely satisfied. The artifact spirit had produced a total of several tens of thousand Class 7 monster cores, and even quite a few Class 8 monster cores. If he could refine all of them, his chaotic body would definitely rise up to another level. At the very least, it was more than enough to reach the second layer. Jian Chen did not stop. Finishing with the first monster core, he immediately pulled out a second Class 7 monster core, continuing his refining. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months passed. Jian Chen spent the entire time in secluded cultivation, refining the monster cores into chaotic force. The 100 cores he had originally brought in were all consumed, which allowed the chaotic Niden in his Dantian to expand by quite a lot. If we continue with a speed like this, reaching the second layer of the chaotic body is just around the corner. Seeing how his chaotic Niden had grown much bigger, Jian Chen experienced unconcealable joy. Soon afterward, he left his room of seclusion, directly summoning the artifact spirit outside. The artifact spirit appeared before Jian Chen without any sound. Jian Chen asked immediately, "Has anything happened outside while I was in seclusion?" "Master, the situation outside remains the same as before. There have been no changes," the artifact spirit said. "Perfect. Then I can keep up the secluded cultivation for some time more. Artifact spirit, please fetch another 500 Class 7 monster cores for me. Please try to pick those from magical beasts that have passed away recently," Jian Chen said. "Yes, Master." The artifact spirit replied courteously. Afterward, with a thought, 500 Class 7 monster cores appeared out of nowhere before Jian Chen. Every monster core radiated with a powerful energy ripple, and the energy inside was extremely active. It was not solidified. Clearly, their masters did not pass away too long ago. Jian Chen took the 500 Class 7 monster cores, turning around to return to his secluded cultivation. "Master, the seal for the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force will open in another half a year." As Jian Chen turned around, the artifact spirit's voice appeared in Jian Chen's head. With that, Jian Chen froze slightly. His father and mother immediately flashed through his head, and he said, "When it happens, you must notify me." As soon as he finished speaking, Jian Chen disappeared into the hall. The heavy door also closed slowly. In the empty room, Jian Chen sat on the ground with his legs crossed. He muttered softly, "There's still over half a year before I can obtain the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force to reach Class 7. I'll be able to revive my parents when that happens. But before that, I need to increase my strength as fast as possible. I can only return to the continent after I possess a strength that can rival the 10 clans. Otherwise, not only will I fail to revive mother and father, even Xiao Bai would be pulled into trouble. It'll be hard to keep my own life intact too." Jian Chen quickly dismissed his emotions. He began to continue his refinement of the monster cores. Now that lack of monster cores was resolved, he needed to power up as fast as possible. In the distant Tianyuan continent, the waves that brewed for the search of the winged tiger god did not bear any signs of weakening. The matter had already caused a great commotion on the continent. Everyone knew. Not only did the 10 protector clans move out for this, even ancient clans and hermit clans that had spent many years hidden had reappeared, joining the search for the winged tiger god. During that time, the 10 protector clans did not just sit around. They had worked together several times in the past to use secret techniques to scan the entire continent. They attempted to find the winged tiger god and Jian Chen's presence, but the outcome would be disappointing every time with no exception. Although the Pure Heart Pavilion had gained Changyanghu, causing some slight shifts in their relationship with the Lore City Changyang clan, they did not give up on the search. The matter regarding the winged tiger god was extremely important. It touched on the fate and future of the entire continent. As one of the 10 protector clans, the Pure Heart Pavilion definitely would not ignore the safety of the continent over just Changyanghu. However, the protector Changyang clan's relationship with the other 8 clans, excluding the Pure Heart Pavilion, became much colder. The 8 clans all harbored ill intentions. None of them wanted the Changyang clan to obtain the winged tiger god successfully, all of them having the intention of eliminating the clan. The Changyang clan naturally discovered this long ago. However, they did not do anything in response. They did not care at all. Instead, they were even more frantic than the 9 other clans in their search for Jian Chen, because not only was Jian Chen an unprecedented genius on the entire continent, the winged tiger god had followed him, a descendant of the Changyang clan. As long as they found Jian Chen first, it would mean that they directly gained control over the winged tiger god. Meanwhile, Changyang Zhu Yunxiao, one of the 7 great elders, always remained in the Changyang clan of Lore City with his wife, Changyang Zhu Yeyun. They silently guarded the clan their son had founded all those years ago in this urgent period, as well as waited for their son's return. The situation of the flame mercenaries was also much better. The group essentially strengthened every day. The news of the tungsten alloy mine they possessed was leaked as the ancient clans had all appeared, but even the ancient clans did not dare to desire the tungsten alloy mine with the shadow of the protector Changyang clan behind them and the Grand Elder of Mercenary City supporting the flame mercenaries. Only the Tianmu clan, after discussions with Yu Yu and Bai Lian, obtained some tungsten alloy in exchange for some equally valuable items. The flame mercenaries never stopped their mining and refining of the tungsten alloy. They already had a large quantity of the refined alloy stored up. Their plan to build city walls had been dismissed and they were now undergoing a plan to build a city. They wanted to build a city just for the flame mercenaries completely out of tungsten alloy. Meanwhile, Ming Dong remained in secluded cultivation in a desolate area. He had never come out since he had entered. Huang Luan had also returned to the Huang family to cultivate after Jian Chen left. Tai Ta, Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Dugu Feng and the others also went into seclusion. They used the monster cores left behind by Jian Chen right before he had left to quickly power up. In the Tianqin clan of Walorant City, Qin Shao originally planned to go searching for Jian Chen. However, as the 10 protector clans publicized Jian Chen's images throughout the entire continent, his movements were immediately suppressed by the great elders of the clan and he was forcefully placed under house arrest. Meanwhile, the young lady, Qin, continued just like before. Every day, if she was not playing the zither, she would be drawing. Her music no longer carried the serenity of before, instead, there was now with a vague longing and gloom. Other than the beautiful scenery in her drawings, there would be extra drawings of a young man. The young man seemed staunch, he was handsome and smart, and the drawing was lifelike, as if he was real. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.